Hello everybody, happy Saturday and welcome to a YouTube live Q&A session. This is your host Roberto Blake helping you create something awesome today. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Roberto Blake. I am a creative entrepreneur. I am a YouTube certified marketer with 3 YouTube certifications. And today I want to talk to you about YouTube's terms of service, YouTube's policies. We are not going to get into some of the controversies here regarding YouTube and their terms of service and recent events. I'm literally just going to read YouTube's policies for you out loud. So if you are interested in that, please make sure you share the link to this video as a resource for the YouTube community, because I understand that reading through the terms of service is grueling. I had to literally get water and Powerade so that I can power through this for you guys here in the next 2 minutes. But first, I have to do some minor housekeeping for this live stream. I need to let you guys know that if you are in the live stream, we're not going to be doing YouTube channel reviews. We might do some of that next week. I will take your super chat questions, and I appreciate any and all super chat donations, whether it's $1, $2, $5. It helps keep me with snacks so that I can survive these live streams and not, die on you. So thank you for that. It's appreciated. Hashtag feed the Roberto. And we're going to get into this, but first, before we get into today's live stream, I need to tell you about today's sponsor for our live Q&A session. And today's sponsor is our friends over at vidIQ, and you can go to vidiq.com/Roberto. vidIQ is one of the best tools for growing your YouTube channel, optimizing, and is recommended by Daryl Eves, Mark Cuban, Jim Louderback, Tim Schmoyer. 3 of those people I've met. I would love to meet Mark Cuban and really talk to him about vidIQ and about YouTube. I wish Mark Cuban was more active in social media. I would really like to have a conversation with him. But you can sign up at vidiq.com/Roberto and get a 30-day free trial of any paid plan using the promo code Roberto at checkout, and you'll be able to do that. So thank you again to our friends at vidIQ for sponsoring today's live stream. So we're going to be getting into the YouTube policies. I'm going to literally walk through the terms of service. I've geared them up here on my screen. We're going to move those over onto the screen so you guys can see them, and we're going to talk about this. I've got water, I've got Powerade, I've got a Nutri-Grain bar. This is going to be awesome. Now, there will be points in the stream where I will definitely answer your questions and those super chats. So I thank everybody who's here in the live chat over on the screen. Thank you so much. We've got super chats. Ben Kaiser, $10. Thank you for the value you've brought me over the past year. It's been way more valuable than 10, but it's a token. Thank you so much. Alex Fishin, thank you so much. Roberto, you're awesome. Thanks for your rants. I love them. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. So I'll get the rest of your super chats later in the stream. Let's go ahead and take a look at YouTube's terms of service. I'm not going to be making eye contact with you. I'm going to pop this up over on my screen here. And so let's see. These are the safety policies. I'll get to that later. We're going to start with the general terms of service, which also include the community guidelines. So I'm going to be reading through these. In fact, actually, I'll just move it to this screen. Nope, I can't move it to this screen. I was going to move it to another screen so that I could kind of try to make eye contact with you, but it's just going to be me staring over here at what's on the screen in terms of the terms of service here. So get ready. Here we go. We're at the 6-minute mark here. So that's for anybody keeping time. We're at like 6 minutes here. YouTube.com terms of service. Community guidelines. Part 1. Your relationship with YouTube. Part 1.1. Your use of the YouTube website, and any other YouTube products, channels, software, data feeds, and services, including the YouTube Embeddable Video Player, also called the YouTube Player, provided to you on or from or through the website by YouTube, collectively the service, is subject to the terms of a legal agreement between you and YouTube. YouTube means YouTube LLC, whose principal place of business is at 901 Cherry Avenue, San Bruno, California, 94066 United States. Part 1.2. Your legal agreement with YouTube is made up of A, the terms and conditions set out in this document, B, YouTube's privacy policy, C, YouTube's community guidelines, collectively called the terms. Part 1.3. The terms form a legal binding agreement between you and YouTube in relation to your use of the service. It is important that you take the time to read them carefully. Part 1.4. The terms apply to all users of the service, including users who are also contributors of content on the service. Content includes the text, software, scripts, graphics, photos, sounds, music, audio-visual combinations, interactive features, and other materials you may view on, access through, or contribute to the service. Part 2. Accepting the terms. 2.1. In order to use the service, you must first agree to the terms. You may not use the service if you do not accept the terms. Part 2.2. You can accept the terms by simply using the service. You understand and agree that YouTube will treat your use of the service as an acceptance of the terms from that point onwards. Part 2.3. You may not use the service and may not accept the terms if A, you are not of legal age to form a binding contract with YouTube, or B, you are a person who is either barred or otherwise legally prohibited from receiving or using the service under the laws of the country in which you are a resident or from which you access the use of the service. 2.4. You should print off or save a local copy of the terms for your records. Part 3. Changes to the terms. YouTube reserves the right to make changes to the terms from time to time. For example, to address changes to the law or regulatory changes or changes to the functionality offered through the service. Therefore, you must look at the terms regularly to check for such changes. The modified version of the terms, aka the modified terms, will be posted at youtube.co.uk/t/terms or made available within the service for any modified additional terms. If you do not agree to the modified terms, you must stop using the service. Your continued use of the service after the date modified. Your continued use of the service after the date the modified terms are posted will constitute your acceptance of the modified terms. Part 4. YouTube accounts. Part 4.1. In order to access some features of the website or other elements of the service, Part 1.4. In order to access some features of the website or other elements of the service, you will have to create a YouTube account. When creating your account, you must provide accurate and complete information. It is important that you must keep your YouTube account password secure and confidential. Part 4.2. You must notify YouTube immediately of any breach of security or unauthorized use of your YouTube account that you become aware of. Part 4.3. You agree that you will be solely responsible to YouTube and to others for all activity that occurs under your YouTube account. Part 5. General restrictions on use. Part 5.1. YouTube hereby grants excuse me. Part 5.1. YouTube hereby grants you permission to access and use the service, subject to the following express conditions, and you agree that your failure to adhere to any of these conditions shall constitute breach of these terms on your part. Part A. You agree not to distribute any part or parts of the website or the service, including but not limited to any content in any medium without YouTube's prior written authorization unless YouTube makes available the means for such distribution through functionality offered by the server player. Part B. You agree to not alter or modify any part of the website or any part of the service, including but not limited to the YouTube player and its related technologies. Part C. You agree not to access content through any technology or means other than video playback pages of the website itself, the YouTube player, or such other means as YouTube may explicitly designate for this purpose. You agree not to attempt to circumvent, disable, or interfere with any security features of the service, features that I prevent or restrict the use, meaning example, prevent or restrict the use of copying of content, or example 2, enforce limitations of the service or the content accessible via the service. I'm going to reread that one. Part D. You agree not to or to attempt to circumvent, disable, or otherwise interfere with any security-related features of the service that, example 1, prevent or restrict the use or copying of content, or, example 2, enforce limitations on the use of the service or the content accessible via the service. Part E. You agree not to use the service, including the YouTube player, for any of the following commercial uses unless you obtain YouTube's prior written approval. Example 1. The sale of access to the service. Example 2. The sale of advertising, sponsorships, or promotions placed on or within the service or content. Part 3. The sale of advertising, sponsorships, or promotions on any page of an ad-enabled blog or website containing content delivered via the service unless other material not obtained from YouTube appears on the same page and is of sufficient value to be the basis for such sales. Part F. Prohibited commercial uses shall not include, example, uploading an original video to YouTube. Example 2, maintaining an original channel on the website in order to promote a business or artistic enterprise. Part 3, showing YouTube videos through the YouTube player or otherwise an ad-enabled blog or website subject to those advertising restrictions set out in 5.1. Example, above. Example 4, any use that is expressly authorized by YouTube in writing. Part G. If you use the YouTube player on your website, may not modify, build upon, or block any portion or functionality of... Let's start that again. Part G. If you use the YouTube player on your website, may not modify, build upon, or block any portion or functionality of the YouTube player, including but not limited to links back to the website. Part H. You agree not to use or launch any automated system, including, without limitation, any robot, spider, or offline reader that accesses the service in a manner that sends more request messages to YouTube servers in a given period of time than a human can reasonably produce in the same period of time by using a publicly available standard, i.e. not modified, web browser. Part I. You agree not to collect or harvest any personal data of any user of the website or any service, and agree that this shall become deemed to include YouTube account names. Part J. You agree not to use the website or the services including the comments and email features in the website, for the solicitation of business in the course of trade or in connection with a commercial enterprise. Part K. You agree not to solicit for commercial purposes any users of the website with respect to their content. And Part L. You agree not to access content or any reason other, they must mean for, any other reason than your personal non-commercial use solely as intended through and permitted by the normal functionality of the service and solely for streaming. Streaming means a contemporaneous digital transmission of the material by YouTube via the internet to a user operated internet-enabled device in such a manner that the data is intended for real-time viewing and not intended to be downloaded, either permanently or temporarily, copied, stored, or redistributed by the user. Part M. You shall not copy, reproduce, distribute, transmit, broadcast, display, sell, license, or otherwise exploit any content for any other purpose without prior written consent of YouTube or the respective licensors of the content. Part 5.2. Excuse me. I have to rehydrate real quick. Sorry. By the way, this is just, it's harder to read through this than it looks, by the way. Part 5.2. Wow, we're only halfway through this, and this is just the terms. Part 5.2. You agree you will comply with all of the other provisions of the terms and the YouTube community guidelines at all times during your use of the service. 5.3. YouTube grants the operators of public search engines permission to use spiders to copy materials from the website for the sole purpose of creating publicly available searchable indexes of the materials, but not caches or archives of such materials. YouTube reserves the right to revoke the exceptions either generally or in specific cases. YouTube is constantly innovating in order to provide the best possible experience for its users. You acknowledge and agree that the form and nature of the service which YouTube provides may change from time to time without prior notice to you. As a part of this continuing innovation, you acknowledge and agree that YouTube may stop permanently or temporarily providing service or any features within the service to you or to users, generally at YouTube's sole discretion without prior notice to you. You may stop using the service at any time. You do not need to specifically inform YouTube when you stop using the service. I'm going to reread part 5.5. As part of this continuing innovation, you acknowledge and agree that YouTube may stop permanently or temporarily providing the service or any features within the service to you or to users, generally at YouTube's sole discretion, without prior notice to you. You may stop using the service at any time. You do not need to specifically inform YouTube when you stop using the service. Part 5.6. You agree that you are solely responsible for, and that YouTube has no responsibility to you or to any third party for, any breach of your obligations under the terms of service and for the consequences, including any loss or damage which YouTube may suffer for any breach. Part 6. Copyright Policy. Part 6.1. YouTube operates a clear copyright policy in relation to any content that is alleged to infringe the copyright of a third party. Details of that policy can be found here. youtube.co.uk/t/copyright_notice. Part 6.2. As part of YouTube's copyright policy, YouTube will terminate user access to the service if a user has been determined to be a repeat infringer. A repeat infringer is a user who has been notified of infringing activity more than twice. Part 7. Content. As a YouTube account holder, you may submit content. You understand that whether or not the content is published, YouTube does not guarantee any confidentiality with respect to content. I'm going to reread that. Part 7.1. As a YouTube account holder, you may submit content. You understand that whether or not the content is published, YouTube does not guarantee any confidentiality with respect to content. Part 7.2. You retain all ownership rights in your content, but you are required to grant limited license rights to YouTube and other users of the service. These are described in paragraph 8 of these terms, rights you license. Part 7.3. You understand and agree that you are solely responsible for your own content and the consequences of posting or publishing it. YouTube does not endorse any content or any opinion, recommendation, or advice expressed therein, and YouTube expressly disclaims any and all liability in connection with content. I'm going to read part 7.3 one more time. 7.3. You understand and agree that you are solely responsible for your own content and the consequences of posting or publishing it. YouTube does not endorse any content or any opinion, recommendation, or advice expressed therein, and YouTube expressly disclaims any and all liability in connection with content. Part 7.4. You represent and warrant that you have and will continue to have during the course of your use of the service all necessary licenses, rights, consents, and permissions which are required to enable YouTube to use your content for the purposes of the provision of the service by YouTube, and otherwise use your content in the manner contemplated by the service and these terms. Part 7.5. You agree that your conduct on the site will comply with, and you agree that all content of your content shall comply with the YouTube community guidelines found at youtube.co.uk/t/community_guidelines as updated from time to time. You agree in part 7.6. You agree that you will not post or upload content which contains material which is unlawful for you to possess in the country in which you are resident, or which it will be unlawful for YouTube to use or possess in connection with the provision of the service. 7.7. You agree that content you submit to the service will not contain any third-party copyright material or material that is subject to other third-party proprietary rights, including rights of privacy or rights of publicity, unless you have a formal license of permission from the rightful owner or are otherwise legally entitled to post the material in question and to grant YouTube the license referred to in paragraph 8.1 below. Part 7.8. On becoming aware of any potential violation of these terms, YouTube reserves the right, but shall have no obligation, to decide whether content complies with the content requirements set out in these terms and may remove such content or terminate a user's account access for uploading content which is in violation of terms at any time without prior notice and at its sole discretion. I'm going to reread part 7.8. On becoming aware of any potential violation of these terms, YouTube reserves the right, but shall have no obligation, to decide whether content complies with the content requirements set out in these terms and may remove such content or terminate a user's access for uploading content which is in violation of these terms at any time, without prior notice and at its sole discretion. I'm going to make a note here that I want to revisit that for a conversation. (7.9) You further understand and acknowledge that in using the service, you may be exposed to content that is factually inaccurate, offensive, indecent, or otherwise objectionable to you. You agree to waive and hereby do waive any legal, equitable rights or remedies you have or may have against YouTube with respect to any such content. Part 7.10. YouTube will possess any audio or Part 7.10. YouTube will process any audio or audiovisual content uploaded by you to the service in accordance with YouTube data processing terms. Reference youtube.com/t/terms_data processing. Except in cases where you uploaded such content for personal purposes or household activities. Learn more here. Support.google.com/YouTube $P equals data_applicability. Part 8. Rights you license. Part 8.1. When you upload or post content to YouTube, you grant the following. A. To YouTube a worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free, transferable license with right to sub-license to use, reproduce, distribute, prepare, derivative works of, display, and perform that content in connection with the provision of the service and otherwise in connection with the provision of the service and YouTube's business, including without limitation for promotion and redistribution, part or all of the service and derivative works thereof in any media formats and through any media channels. B. To each user of the service a worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free license to access your content through the service and to use, reproduce, distribute, prepare derivative works of, or display and perform such content to the extent permitted by the functionality of the service under these terms. Part 8.2. The above licenses granted by you in content terminate when you remove or delete your content from the website. The above license granted by you in textual comments you submit as content are perpetual and irrevocable, but are otherwise without prejudice to your ownership rights, which are retained by you as set out in paragraph 7.2 above. YouTube content on the website. Part 9. Part 9.1. With the exception of content submitted to the service by you, all other content on the service is either owned by or licensed to YouTube and is subject to copyright, trademark rights, and other intellectual property rights of YouTube or YouTube's licensors. Any third-party trade or service marks present on content not uploaded or posted by you are trademarks of their respective owners. Such content may not be downloaded, copied, reproduced, distributed, transmitted, broadcast, displayed, sold, licensed, or otherwise exploited for any other purpose whatsoever without the prior written permission, consent of YouTube, or where applicable, YouTube's licensors. YouTube and its licensors reserve all rights not expressly granted in and to their content. Part 10. Links from YouTube. The service may include hyperlinks to other websites that are not owned or controlled by YouTube. YouTube has no control over and assumes no responsibility for the content, piracy policies, or practices of any third parties. Part 10.2. You acknowledge and agree that YouTube is not responsible for the availability of any such external sites or resources and does not endorse any advertising, products, or materials or on or available from such websites or resources. Part 10.3. You acknowledge and agree that YouTube is not liable for any loss or damage which may be incurred by you as a result of the availability of those external sites or resources, or as a result of any reliance placed by you on the completeness, accuracy, or existence of any advertising, products, or materials on or available such websites or resources. Part 10.4. YouTube encourages you to be aware that when you leave the service and to read the terms of... let's start that again. Part 10.4. YouTube encourages you to be aware when you leave the service and to read the terms and conditions and privacy policies of each other website that you visit. How much more do we have? How long is this? Okay, it's not that much further. And by the way, like, if anyone wants to drop any super chats for me going through the crucible that is the terms of service, please feel free to drop any super chats and any donations for me going through this, because this is painful. This is physically painful. Part 11. Ending your relationship with YouTube. 11.1. The terms will continue to apply until terminated by either you or YouTube as set out below. Part 11.2. If you want to terminate your legal agreement with YouTube, you may do so by notifying YouTube at any time, closing your YouTube account. Your notice should be sent in writing to YouTube's address, which is set at the beginning of these terms. Part 11.3. YouTube may at any time terminate its legal agreement with you if A. You have breached any provision of the terms or have acted in a manner which clearly shows that you do not intend to or are unable to comply with the provisions of the terms, or YouTube is required to do so by law, for example, where the provision of the service to you is or becomes unlawful. Or, Part 11.4, YouTube may terminate its legal agreement with you if A. YouTube is transitioning to no longer providing the service to users in the country in which you are resident from, or which the use of the service, or B. the provision of the service to you by YouTube is, in YouTube's opinion, no longer commercially viable. And in the case of each A and B of this clause, 11.4 shall, where possible, give reasonable notice of such termination. 11.5. When these terms come to an end, all of the legal rights, obligations, and liabilities that you and YouTube have benefited from, been subject to, or which have occurred over the time whilst terms of service have been in force, or which are expressed to continue indefinitely, shall be unaffected by this cessation, and the provisions of paragraph 14.6 shall continue to apply to such rights, obligations, and liabilities indefinitely. Part 12. Exclusion of warranties. Part 12.1. Nothing in the terms shall affect any statutory rights that you are always entitled to as a consumer and that you cannot contractually agree to or alter or waive. Part 12.2. The service is provided as is, and YouTube makes no warranty or representation to you with respect to them. 12.3. In particular, YouTube does not represent or warrant to you that A. Your use of the service will meet your requirements. B. Your use of the service will be uninterrupted, timely, secure, or free from error. C. Any information obtained by you as a result of your use of the service will be accurate or reliable. And D. That deficits in the operation or functionality of any software provided to you as part of the service will be corrected. That one becomes important to make a note of, and so I'm going to revisit that for our later conversation. 12.3 Part D. Part 13, limitation of liability. Part 13.1, nothing in these terms shall exclude or limit YouTube's liability for losses which may not be lawful, excluded by, or limited to applicable law. 13.2, subject to the overall provision in paragraph 13.1 above, YouTube shall not be liable to you for the following. A, any indirect or consequential losses which may be incurred by you. This shall include, example, any loss of profit where incurred directly or indirectly. 2, any loss of goodwill or business reputation. 3, any loss of opportunity. Or 4, any loss of data suffered by you. B, any loss or damage which may be incurred by you as a result of the following. Example, any reliance placed on you by the completeness, accuracy, or existence of any advertising, or as a result of any relationship or transaction between you and any advertiser or sponsor whose advertising appears on the service. Example 2, any changes which YouTube may make to the service, or for any permanent or temporary cessation in the provision of the service, or any features within the service. Example 3, the deletion of, corruption of, failure to store any content or any communications data maintained or transmitted by or through your use of the service. Example 4, your failure to provide YouTube with accurate account information. Example 5, your failure to keep your password or YouTube account details secure and confidential. Part 13.3, the limitations of YouTube's liability to you in paragraph 13.2 above shall apply whether or not YouTube has been advised or should have been aware of the possibility of any such losses arising. Part 14, general legal terms. Part 14.1, the terms constitute the whole legal agreement between you and YouTube and govern your use of the service and completely replace any prior agreements between you and YouTube in relation to the service. All other terms of service that Google Inc. and any of its subsidiaries may have in place from time to time are expressly excluded from these terms. Part 14.2, you agree that YouTube may provide you with notices, including those regarding changes to terms by email, regular mail, or postings on the service. Part 14.3, you agree that if YouTube does not exercise or enforce any legal right or remedy which is contained within the terms of service or which YouTube has the benefit of under any applicable law, this will not be taken to be a formal waiver of YouTube's rights, and those rights of remedies will still be available to YouTube. That one's important. 14.4. If any court of law having the jurisdiction to decide on this matter rules that any provision of these terms is invalid, then that provision will be removed from the terms without affecting the rest of the terms. The remaining provisions of the terms will continue to be valid and enforceable. You can't find something wrong with one thing in this entire agreement or contract and use that to invalidate the entire agreement or contract. It's still enforceable. 14.5. You acknowledge and agree that each member of the group of companies of which YouTube is part shall be third-party beneficiaries to the terms, and that such other companies shall be entitled to indirectly or directly enforce and rely upon any provisions of the terms which confers a benefit on or rights in favor of them. Other than this, no other person or company shall be a third-party beneficiary of the terms. Part 14.6. The terms and your relationship with YouTube under the terms shall be governed by English law. You and YouTube agree to submit to the exclusive jurisdiction of the courts of England to resolve any legal matter arising from the terms. Notwithstanding this, you agree that YouTube shall still be allowed to apply for injunctive remedies or other equivalent types of urgent legal remedy in any jurisdiction. Terms dated 25th of May, 2018. So those are the terms of service. Before I read you the community guidelines, before I read you, and no, I'm not going to do DTube next. Like, I like, this was a crucible as it is. Dominique, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. You're the real MVP. Thank you for reading this. So now I've read the YouTube terms of service, and YouTube does follow their terms of service strictly. They absolutely do. They actually honor that because there's a point in paragraph 7.8 that needs to be addressed here. So I'm going to reread you 7.8, and then I'm going to add context, and then I'll answer any of your questions about this before we jump into community guidelines. Paragraph 7.8. On becoming aware of any potential violation of these terms, YouTube reserves the right, but shall have no obligation to decide whether content complies with the content requirements set out in these terms of service and may remove content and or terminate a user's access for uploading content which is in violation of these terms at any time without prior notice or sole discretion. So what does that mean in plain English? Well, I'm not a lawyer, but the way that that reads, if you are following along, is that in paragraph 7.8 of the terms of service, that if YouTube is aware that you are violating the terms of service, they reserve the right to punish you for that in the way outlined available to the terms of service, with either removing your content or terminating your channel. However, they are not obligated, they are not required, they are not obliged to enforce their own terms of service, and they are not obliged to decide on whether something is a violation, which means that YouTube legally, based on what we all agreed to, does not have to equally enforce their terms. They do not have to equally enforce their terms, meaning that if Beanie violates terms of service and I violate terms of service and we do exactly the same thing, YouTube can punish us equally, or they can choose not to punish me at all. And they have the legal recourse to do that and to not punish me. They have no obligation to hold me to the terms of service. YouTube can decide that I am their favorite and they could not hold me accountable and can choose to hold only Beanie Draws accountable even if we do exactly the same thing. They legally are not obligated to treat us fairly or equally for the same violation of terms. Even if they are aware that a violation happens, they reserve the right to act on it, but they have no obligation to act on it. So they don't have to remove anything that violates their terms of service. They have no obligation to do that legally because we agreed to that. And when we use the service, both as a viewer and as a creator, we agreed that that's within their purview, and that's in this contract. Do you think that's ethical or fair is a completely another debate, but it's legal. So that means that they could say, we're not going to strike Logan Paul. We're not going to strike Jake Paul, but we'll strike H3H3. I don't agree with the fact that that should happen, but if they decide for one reason or another to do that, they have the legal recourse based on their own terms of service to not enforce policy equally. And that's actually written out clearly if you can read legalese, that on becoming aware of any potential violation of these terms, YouTube reserves the right, but shall have no obligation. That's the important part. YouTube reserves the right, but shall have no obligation to decide whether content complies with content requirements set out in these terms, and may remove such content and or terminate a user's access for uploading content which is in violation of these terms at any time without prior notice and at its sole discretion. YouTube has the ability to say that if they find out that you violated terms, they can punish you or not punish you. They can decide and hold sole discretion over punishing you or not punishing you. It's up to YouTube. And they can decide to punish you by removing the content or by removing your access to upload. They could do that, or they could do none of it. They can do either of it, all of it, or none of it. They can do either of it, all of it, or none of it. And they have the legal wherewithal based on point 7.8, paragraph 7.8 of the terms of service of this agreement. I'm not a lawyer, but as a user, that's my interpretation of what I read. That's my interpretation of what I read. I would love to have a lawyer read the terms of service. And here's the thing. I cannot fault YouTube in good conscience for having this policy, because if I were a social media company, I would have this exact same policy in my terms of service and in my agreement, because I have a fiduciary responsibility to protect my employees, protect my platform, and protect my shareholders, and protect the interest of my business. So we can agree about the ethics of that. I think it's smart business sense, and I think any of you own a company, put that clause in the contract, please. If any of you own a company, write your contract, hire the same lawyers that YouTube did. They are smart. You can agree or disagree with whether you like it, with whether they're scummy in your opinion. That's totally up to you to have that subjective point of view. Ruthlessly, as a business person, I'm going to say, I need this lawyer. I need whichever lawyer wrote this up. I need them on payroll tomorrow. I need an ironclad contract like this. I need a great terms of service policy like this. For me, great for me, the business owner. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, for you guys, the rest of you get what I'm saying. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it, but you agreed to play by these rules. And so now you know. Knowing's half the battle. G.I. Joe. Like, 80s kids, right? So I want to go to paragraph 12.3, part D, because this applies to a friend of mine and what happened to her channel. So, no exclusion of warranties. Nothing in the terms shall affect any statutory rights that you were always entitled to as a consumer, and that you cannot contractually agree to, alter, or waive. The service is provided as is, and YouTube makes no warranty or representation to you with respect to the following. Part D. Paragraph 12.3, Part D, that defects in the operation or functionality of any software provided to you as part of the service will be corrected. This is an important provision because my friend got this, that happened to her channel. So, like, my friend, Swoop, Spanky Valentine, she had a channel with 600,000 subscribers. You guys might have heard about this. She was hit with what's called an algorithmic anomaly on her channel, and it corrupted her channel to exclude her content from being surfaced by YouTube. So it was impossible for her content to to gain exposure in the platform. So YouTube effectively accidentally killed her 600K subscriber channel, and they acknowledged it to her. But what happens is they couldn't roll it back and fix it or they didn't have to roll it back and fix her channel, because in Part D, in paragraph 12.3, Part D, YouTube says that it represents no warranty to you that the defects in the operation or functionality of any software provided to you as part of the service will be corrected. Meaning, if they break your YouTube channel, they are not obligated to fix it. If they mess up your YouTube channel, they are not obligated to fix it. That is in paragraph 12.3, Part D. They have no obligation to fix anything that they screw up on your channel. So that is troublesome, because if they mess something up, you would think that as a customer they'd fix it for you, but they have no obligation to do that, and that's worrying. David from Singapore, how are you? Awesome. So that's a bother. Let's look at the community guidelines and let's go through that. So these are the YouTube community guidelines. I'm going to read these for you. But by the way, if you guys are benefiting from me reading the terms of service and you understand YouTube a little bit better and you understand what you're dealing with as a creator and what your rights are and are not, feel free to drop me a super chat. I really do appreciate it. And again, thank you to our friends at vidIQ for sponsoring this stream. Remember to go to vidiq.com/Roberto. Get a 30-day free trial of vidIQ. Policies and safety. When you use YouTube, you join a community of people from all over the world. Every cool new community feature on YouTube involves a certain level of trust. Millions of users respect that trust, and we trust you to be responsible too. Following the guidelines below helps to keep YouTube fun and enjoyable for everyone. You might not like everything you see on YouTube. If you think content is inappropriate, use the flagging feature to submit it for review by YouTube staff. Our staff carefully reviews flag content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to determine whether it's in violation of our community guidelines. YouTube's community guidelines. Here are some common sense rules that will help you steer clear of trouble. Please take these rules seriously and take them to heart. Do not try to look for loopholes or try to lawyer your way around the guidelines. Just understand them and try to respect the spirit in which they were created. All right, let's go. Let's do it. Nudity or sexual content. YouTube is not for pornography or sexually explicit content. If this describes your video, even if it's a video of yourself, don't post it on YouTube. Also be advised that we work closely with law enforcement and report child exploitation. Let's learn more. YouTube's nudity and sexual content policies. If a video is intended to be sexually provocative, it is less likely to be acceptable for YouTube. What is and is not allowed. Sexually explicit content like pornography is not allowed. Videos containing fetish content will be removed or age restricted depending on the severity of the act in question. In most cases, violent, graphic, or humiliating fetishes are not allowed to be showed on YouTube. A video that contains nudity or sexual content may be allowed if the primary purpose is educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic and is not gratuitously graphic. For example, a documentary on breast cancer would be appropriate, but posting clips out of context from the same documentary may not be. Remember that the providing context in the title and description will help us and your viewers determine the primary purpose of the video. Age-restricted content. In cases where videos do not cross the line but still contain sexual content, we may apply an age restriction so that only viewers of a certain age view the content. Videos containing nudity or dramatized sexual conduct may be age restricted, and when the content is appropriately educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic. Videos featuring individuals in minimal or revealing clothing may also be age restricted if they're intended to be sexually provocative but don't show explicit content. What we consider when age restricting a video. Whether breast, buttocks, genitalia, clothed or unclothed are the focal point of the video. When the video setting is sexually suggested. Example, a location generally associated with sexual activity such as a bed. Whether the subject is depicted in a pose that is intended to sexually arouse the viewer. When the language used in the video is vulgar or lewd. When the subject's actions in the video suggest a willingness to engage in sexual activity. Examples, kissing, provocative dancing, fondling, and if the subject is minimally clothed, whether clothing would be acceptable in an appropriate public context, such as swimwear versus lingerie. Other factors include the length of time of an image appears on the video, fleeting versus prolonged exposure, especially relative to the overall length of the video, the camera angle and focus, the relative clarity of images in the video thumbnail. Please refer to misleading thumbnail policy. Reporting nudity and sexual content. Flag the video. You may report videos that you believe violate this policy or may not be appropriate for all ages by flagging the video. If you wish to avoid discovering age-restricted content, please consider enabling YouTube's restricted mode. Was this article helpful? Yes, it was. We'll visit spam and deceptive practices later. So, moving on, let's go and see what the policy is on hateful content. Hateful content. Our products are platforms for free expression, but we don't support content that promotes or condones violence against individuals or groups based on race or ethnic origin, religion, disability, gender, age, nationality, veteran status, or sexual orientation/gender identity, or whose primary purpose is inciting hatred on the basis of these core characteristics. This can be a delicate balancing act, but if the primary purpose is to attack a protected group, the content crosses the line. So when people say, is YouTube clear on their policies, that seemed a little bit detailed, honestly, because that was a lot to read, even in one sentence. But there's a learn more tab, so I want to see what they say, and I want to see what details they have. Is this long? Okay, this isn't that long, but it looks like this is going to be somewhat detailed. So this is YouTube's hate speech policy. We encourage free speech and try to defend your right to express unpopular points of view, but we don't permit hate speech. Hate speech refers to content that promotes violence or has the primary purpose of inciting hatred against individuals or groups based on certain attributes such as race or ethnic origin, religion, disability, gender, age, veteran status, sexual orientation/gender identity. There is a fine line in between what is and is what not considered to be hate speech. For instance, it is generally okay to criticize a nation state, but if the primary purpose of the content is to incite hatred against a group of people solely based on their ethnicity, or if the content promotes violence based on any of these core attributes, like religion, it violates our policy. Reporting hateful content. Keep in mind that not everything that's mean or insulting is hate speech. If you're upset by content that a specific person is posting, you may wish to consider blocking the user. However, if you feel that content violates our hate speech policy, report to YouTube for review in one of the following ways. Flag the video. You may report the hateful content that you think may violate our community guidelines by flagging it. File an abuse report if you have found multiple videos, comments, or a user's entire account that you wish to report. Please visit our reporting tool where you will be able to submit a more detailed report. Was this article helpful? Yes. Okay, so I want to ask you guys what in this policy, if anything, is confusing so that we can try and clarify it. Because I would think that, like, if you make a video that, for example, is just hateful toward the blind or to the deaf or someone in a wheelchair, or if you made a video that incites violence against Iraq veterans, and these are just examples that I'm using, or that you attacked people because, let's say, they're atheist, for example, or because they're Christian, or because they're Muslim, or because they're Jewish, then I think that video would be in violation of this policy. But I want to ask you guys the question because there's been discussion that YouTube is not clear about what is and isn't acceptable in its policies. I'm trying to read it, and I'm trying to interject as little of my own opinion as I read through this, but I want to answer your questions as to what in this policy to you is unclear, because then we can try and have the discussion to clear it up. Because I think that this is pretty straightforward. I think if somebody made a comment on my YouTube channel where they're attacking me, where people have done that to me, people have attacked me and used the N-word, and I've reported those comments to YouTube, and I would think that constitutes a violation of the policy, right? Or if, say, someone in my community, Ricky, if they were attacking her because she's part of the deaf community, I would think that constitutes a violation of this policy. So I'm not sure when people say that the terms of service with regard to what is and isn't permissible with this particular part of the policy, because there are other parts I do think are vague, but I think the hate speech policy, I'm pretty sure that this is straightforward as best as I can tell, but I want to ask the question to you. Spank Buddha says, what is the definition of an attack? Is it someone's opinion? So I think that, well, the obvious things of an attack, I think, is if you do it on race, I would think that using a racial slur shows that one is acting in bad faith, and that one is trying to dehumanize someone, and that would be considered a form of a verbal attack. That would be considered a verbal attack. You've heard the phrase verbal sparring. There's a such thing as a difference between verbal sparring, which might be considered witty banter, versus using a word that has the weight of, say, genocide behind it or ethnic cleansing behind it. I would think that there are words that are associated with people that, say, for example, might be Jewish or Armenian, or even people of Romani descent. If you're familiar with the Romanis, often referred to pejoratively as gypsies. I think that using slurs and pejorative language to dehumanize or otherwise devalue that person constitutes what one would say is a verbal attack, and obviously inciting violence against said people is also clearly a violation of policy. Or inciting hatred or saying it's all of these people's fault. I think that makes it clear. I think if you have to look up the definition of what a verbal attack is, which I think we could do if you need clarification. Definition of verbal attack, and I'll see what we can find if that needs to be clarified in some way. And we'll use 3 sources. We'll use Merriam-Webster, we'll use Wikipedia, and we'll use the free dictionary. So we'll source this 3 times. So the free dictionary, let's see where it says verbal assault, verbal, hang on, I misspelled that. Sorry. Well, the definition of assault from freedictionary.com, when we type in verbal assault or verbal abuse, which this is related to, says A, a noun, a violent physical attack as with blows, or B, a strong cutting verbal attack. Example 2, a military attack such as one launched against a fortified area in place. The B, the concluding stage of an attack in which close combat occurs with the enemy. Applied to the rule of law. Part 3, a unlawful threat or attempt to do bodily injury to another. B, the act or instance of unlawfully threatening or attempting to injure another. Part 4, A, sexual assault. B, the crime of rape. Part 5, the rigorous or energetic effort to accomplish something difficult. And then used as a verb to make a violent assault upon attack. See synonymous by attack. Part 2, to rape. Part 3, to attack verbally, criticize, or denounce. Part 4, to harass or to beset. Also see assaulted by advertisements. Further, assault, a violent attack, either physical or verbal. Law, an intentional or reckless act that causes another person to expect to be subjected to immediate and unlawful violence. Compare battery or assault. It goes on like this. So if you're mincing what the word attack means, we've gone through multiple ways to interpret the word attack. Let's see what Wikipedia says about what verbal abuse is, for clarification. Wikipedia defines verbal abuse. A verbal attack or verbal assault is when a person forcefully criticizes, insults, or denounces someone else, characterized by underlying anger or hostility. It is a destructive form of communication intended to harm the self-concept of the person and to produce negative emotions. Verbal abuse is a maladaptive mechanism that anyone can display occasionally, such as during times of high stress or physical discomfort. For some people, it is a pattern of behaviors used intentionally to control or manipulate others to get revenge. That's Wikipedia's definition. The definition of attack by Merriam-Webster: to set upon or to work against forcefully, attack an enemy fortification. To assail with unfriendly or bitter words, a politician verbally attacked by critics. To begin to affect or to act injuriously, plants attacked by aphids. To set to work on, attack a problem. Part A to Part B, to begin to eat food eagerly. Part 5, chess, to threaten a peace with immediate capture. Intransitive verb, to make an attack, They were unprepared when the enemy attacked. Examples of attack in a sentence. He attacked the guard with a knife. Troops attacked the fortress at dawn. The troops attacked at dawn. People are attacking the mayor for breaking campaign promises. The professor has been wildly attacked for her position on the issue. Did you see the way the kids attacked the pizza? So, if you are confused about what the policy is with regard to the interpretation of the word attack when it's used in YouTube's hate speech policy in any way, I hope that adds some level of clarification using the 3 sources of Merriam-Webster's dictionary, verbal abuse as dictated by Wikipedia, and the definition for assault and verbal assault from freedictionary.com. And I would encourage you to use common sense and your best judgment in the interpretation of the usage in the words and the language in the policy. But was there anything else within the policy on this particular one that still seemed, unclear? Because if there is, then I want to make sure that we've covered that. That's all. I'm reading the policies out loud, and then if there's a word or a phrase or a usage that you don't understand, I'm sourcing things to clarify that so that there's not a misunderstanding. Yeah. That's where I wanted to go on that one, just to see if that one was clear. If we're good on that, I can move on to the harassment and cyberbullying policy, because we still have in the community guidelines, we actually have, how many policy segments do we have? There are about a dozen policy segments, and we've actually only gotten through 2 of them so far in the hour, and we're at the top of the hour. But we did get through the terms of service, which was the more convoluted thing. So I think that's the challenge. We got through the terms of service. The community guidelines, we have to parse, because I understand where they're like, that one was cut and dry. It was legalese. So I want to go through the rest of these policies. So are you guys good? All right, so the harassment and cyberbullying policy. It is now okay to post abusive videos and comments on YouTube. If harassment crosses the line into a malicious attack, it can be reported and may be removed. In other cases, users may be mildly annoying or petty and should be ignored. Read more. Okay? So this one is harassment and cyberbullying. And after this, I do want to kind of get into the spam and deceptive practices at some point. So we'll definitely cover that. But harassment and cyberbullying policy. We want you to use YouTube without fear of being subjected to malicious harassment. In cases where harassment crosses the line into a malicious attack, it can be reported and will be removed. In other cases, users may be mildly annoying or petty and should simply be ignored. Harassment may include abusive videos, comments, and messages. Revealing someone's personal information, including sensitive personal information, identifiable information such as social security numbers, passport numbers, or bank account numbers. Maliciously recording someone without their consent. Deliberately posting content in order to humiliate someone. Making hurtful and negative comments, videos about another person. Unwarranted sexualization, which encompasses sexual harassment or abuse or sexual bullying in any form. Incitement to harass other users or creators. Tips and advice. Pause before you post. Think seriously about how you may be perceived online and do not post anything that may compromise your reputation or safety. Speak up. Tell friends to stop cyberbullying and voice your opinion against cyberbullying when you see it on the site. Tell an adult if you remain concerned about another's actions toward you online. Try deleting comments and blocking the user if the user is bothering you so they can't leave more comments. You can also turn comments off on any video or manage contents by requiring pre-approval before they get posted. Respect other people's opinions online, but know that when it crosses the line, we want YouTube to be a dynamic, expressive platform, but we do not want users to feel intimidated or threatened. Report harassing users and content via YouTube's reporting tool. To learn about tools available to help you get or manage your experience on the site, especially abusive users, please visit our privacy and safety settings page. Sometimes criticism and insults can escalate into more serious forms of harassment and cyberbullying. If specific threats are made against you and you feel unsafe, tell a trusted adult and report it to your local law enforcement agency. Was this article helpful? Yes. So does anyone think that... does anyone have like confusion or questions on this particular policy? Is this policy or any of the provisions in this policy on cyberbullying and harassment confusing or requires more clarification for any of you guys so far? Yeah, I'm looking in the comment section just to see if any of you have questions about that particular policy on cyberbullying and harassment. Someone's asking, are diss tracks considered harassment? I believe that they could be reported as harassment depending on the language used in the diss track, and it depends on what information. For example, if a diss track has something that can be considered the unwanted sexualization or something that encompasses or promotes sexual harassment or sexual bullying, then yes, anything that is sexualization of another content creator, for example, a diss track on a male or female creator that sexualizes them in some pejorative way, could be considered harassment or cyberbullying based on this policy and how it reads. And if you read the line, it says deliberately posting content in order to humiliate someone. Diss tracks and certain commentary videos and storytime videos would probably fall under violation of the policy. But according to the terms of service and paragraph 7.8 of YouTube's overall terms of service, YouTube may choose not to punish that content at their discretion. I disagree that supporting free speech means supporting all speech, including racism and terrorism, etc. I disagree with that stance Beanie draws. Free speech is not protecting all speech. If you read at least the American Constitution, and then if you read the American Bill of Rights, and then if you read what is codified in the rule of law with regard to what people are able to do and say, one, anything that incites an act of terrorism actually is a crime. Slander is a crime punishable by civil law. Libel is punishable by civil law. Anything that's defamation is punishable by civil law. Those things are not protected. And also there are things wherein one does actually have what's called the right to reputation, and therefore that's why slander, libel, and falsehoods are not legally protected speech as well. So I would just say be careful about taking the stance of free speech as being binary and all or nothing, because it's not true, and free speech does not extend to the terms of agreement within a legal contract that is enforceable by law that you agree to, and that you waive all indemnification and liability to the company, which means that when you sign an agreement or a contract and that contract is deemed to be legal, which is what agreeing to the terms of service is in the first paragraph of the agreement, then that becomes problematic because you signed a legally binding contract that would supersede the limitations of how you're allowed to act. For example, an employment agreement would have the clause that you may not be able to one, within the scope of a non-disclosure agreement, reveal proprietary information or secrets of your employer. So if you're not able legally under an NDA to disclose proprietary information or secrets of the company, which would be considered industrial espionage, or if you did things that are, for example, if you're in the financial industry, you could do what's called insider trading. None of those things are covered under free speech. So understanding that there are, in free speech in the First Amendment, limitations that exist within the provision of all of our other laws is important. And it's what people don't take into context with social media, is that every single social media website has a terms of service, operating policies, and agreements that are legally binding in much the same way that an employment contract is legally binding. And that's a problem for you to just believe that everything is permissible, because that's not legally true. By the book, it's not legally true that you can say anything without there being legal ramifications, provisions, or limitations. Primary example, if you sign an NDA with your employer and your employer is damaged by you violating NDA, they can sue you into oblivion, and you don't have protection under the First Amendment and free speech from being sued into oblivion by an employer for damages for violating a non-disclosure agreement. That won't be free speech. That will be what I call expensive speech, very expensive speech. The same thing with a defamation lawsuit. Those things, again, it's there, it's legal, it's not what I want, it's not what I said, it's not, but it's the way it is. It's the rule of law exists, and to pretend otherwise is naive, it's naive. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I mean, it's not political. It's business. It's expensive speech if you ignore the rule of law and you ignore the contracts that you sign. And when you use a social media platform, by using it, you saw it, I read the terms. First paragraph, you agree to a legally binding agreement. And you remove liability from the company, but if you saw, the company retains all legal remedies to come after you. So the websites retain all of the legal leverage to come after you for any damages, and they can absorb all legal remedies, much like an employer. And you don't necessarily have a legal recourse because you agreed to waive that right. That's pretty troubling if you don't read the terms of service, and that's why we're doing that today. Just making sense of this. Again, not saying it's ethical, not saying, I'm not weighing in on that. I'm just reading you the policies. Blaine, I had been saying for months, actually, that I was going to read the terms of service out loud on the stream, so it's not related directly to anything, except I've been promising for months to just read the terms of service out loud and to talk through it with you guys. So, Beanie, it's down to, I've been promising this for months. Beanie, you've been around. I've been promising this for months. It's just convenient to do it now. Threats. Things like predatory behavior, stalking, threats, harassment, intimidation, invading privacy, revealing other people's personal information, and inciting others to commit violent acts or to violate the terms of use are taken seriously. Anyone caught doing these things may be permanently banned from YouTube. So the policy on threats is as follows. YouTube's policy on threats. The YouTube community is important to us, and we want to see it flourish. To ensure that this is possible, content that makes threats of serious physical harm against a specific individual or defined group of individuals will be removed. People who threaten others may receive a strike on their account, and their content account may be terminated. How to report a threat. Flag the video. You can report serious threats of violence by flagging the video. File an abuse report. If you have found multiple videos, comments, or a user's entire account that you wish to report, or use our reporting tool where you will be able to submit a detailed complaint. Was this article helpful? So yeah. So threats of violence are definitely important. There was somebody who said when there was the YouTube shooter a couple of months ago, there was somebody who did oh, it's too bad Roberto wasn't there that day. That constitutes wishing for my death, which could be easily interpreted within the scope of legal as a threat. I'm not a lawyer, but that's my understanding of how the law works, and that would definitely be within the policy of threats here. So I would say that that's a pretty clear-cut explanation. So I don't think I don't think there's any vague notion in the policy on threats. Does anyone feel like this one is vague? Because I think this one's pretty cut and dry. I think that that's why it's only like 2 paragraphs, because I think that's pretty simple. If you physically threaten anybody with violence, whether they're an individual or a group, then you could, be removed or you can be banned. It's at the discretion of YouTube. But again, I will remind you guys that for those of you saying that if people broke the terms of service, they would be gone a long time ago or things of that nature, I refer you to paragraph 7.8. On becoming aware of the potential violation of these terms, YouTube reserves the right, but shall have no obligation to decide whether content complies with the content requirement set in these terms, and may remove such content and or terminate a user's access for uploading content which is in violation of these terms at any time without prior notice and at its sole discretion. Couple of things to point out here again. YouTube reserves the right but shall have no obligation. YouTube can but is not required to. YouTube can but doesn't have to decide whether content complies. And it may remove content or terminate users' access. YouTube gets to decide when it will enforce policy and when it will not enforce policy. YouTube gets to decide if a piece of content violates terms or if it doesn't. And even if they decide that piece of content violates terms, they reserve the right but are not obligated to act on it. That is within the terms of agreement. So that means that YouTube can enforce policy as they see fit, when they want to see fit, based on paragraph 6.8 of the terms of service that we all agree to as a legally binding contract. YouTube can choose whether or not to enforce the violation of terms of service penalties, or they could choose to not even decide and weigh in on whether content violates terms. They could choose to ignore something altogether. For example, they could choose to ignore something that Logan Paul does because they reserve that right, but are not obligated to act on it. They could not even decide whether that broke terms or not. It's like, we didn't look at it. They could decide that. That would not be good PR for them, but they can absolutely do that. There is content that may violate on Jake Paul's channel terms of service as is indicated with nudity or sexual content. Logan Paul's channel as well. But YouTube does reserve the right to determine whether that violates terms, and they still reserve the right to decide whether it enforces it. They could deem a lot of the diss tracks from any number of creators who participate in the diss tracks to either be cyberbullying, harassment, very easily, especially the sexualization clause as highlighted here, but they could choose to interpret it that way or not, and can choose to act on it or not. Now, people may not like double standards, but from a legal standpoint, a company is within its rights to have double standards. A company is within its rights to decide not to enforce policy equally or wholly or at all. They can do that. It's not binary. And they gave themselves that ability in the terms of service that every user, both as a creator and as a viewer, agrees to by using the platform. As stated in paragraph 7.8 of the terms of service, that is part of your legally binding agreement as a YouTube viewer and a YouTube creator who holds an account. and uses the service. Usage of the service constitutes a binding legal agreement of this terms. So I read it. It's not, I didn't make the rules. I'm just saying, and I'm just explaining, and it's here. It's in black and white. And again, if something's not clear, let's try and clear it up. Let's try and clear it up. Because again, YouTube can enforce anything or not enforce anything. You can say that that's wrong, but legally and from a business standpoint, there is actually a reason for it, and we can get a conversation going about that. But, you know, I feel that there's a conversation as to why businesses do what they do. And I'll give you an example of why there's not a YouTube competitor, because I've been thinking about this, and believe it, I talk in the startup world. I know people who have multiple startups that want to be competitive to YouTube, and I'm recommending that they become a niche site the way Twitch does, for example, instead of trying to take on YouTube head-to-head, because you cannot beat YouTube. It is impossible. It's too late. The window closed. Vidler tried, VidMe tried, and you know what happened is that Vessel, it was Vessel, VidMe, and Vidler, right? And the problem is that they all failed. They all failed. They wanted to be bastions of free speech. The problem is that they couldn't bring in the money. They couldn't charge the users because users wouldn't pay for it. And they couldn't charge the advertisers because they couldn't get enough traction on the platform. And they couldn't sustain it at a loss. So all of these platforms that wanted to be a competitor to YouTube but be less restrictive did not have the financial wherewithal to accomplish that. And so that is, in fact, a problem. Here is the other problem. The other problem is that for a business to have its own interest and to protect its platform, its assets, and its ability to allow the service, it has to operate within a financially responsible framework. And making everything permissible is not within that framework. Now, the other problem with it is this, is when you don't have those rules, or if they're not in compliance with the law or the international law, legal liability becomes an issue. And if legal liability becomes an issue, it means that one or two bad actors can compromise the entire platform. The other thing is nobody can subsidize the expense of the bandwidth, the server hosting, or the staff support to build a platform like this. So it's literally impossible. It's literally financially unviable, it's unsustainable, and it's impossible. Not in the form of something that hosts literally petabytes of video data. It's not something that's doable from an infrastructure standpoint. Financing it is near impossible. But the reason YouTube can do it is that YouTube was able to operate at a loss for 7 years. You will not find a company in the 21st century that can subsidize and have a loss leader for 7 years financially. It's not doable. Not at the scale of supporting 1.8 billion users. So you can't take a loss for 7 years on the infrastructure of that, the employees and staffing of that, the legal fees that they incurred via the battle with Viacom. It's not possible. And then, who really wants to compete with YouTube? And who, if they are a YouTube creator that can bring traffic to the platform, wants to take a risk of their revenue? Who has traffic and makes 6 figures or 7 figures or 8 figures that want why would they take a risk on something else? No one takes a risk when they're making that kind of money, which means that the star power that YouTube has will not be moved over to another platform. It just won't happen. Not sufficiently to sustain that platform to catch up to YouTube on the marketing or the budget, not to mention that everyone will sell out, which means that if YouTube or Microsoft or Facebook decides to offer whoever builds that platform a couple $1 billion, nobody is above being bought that way. They will just sell out. YouTube sold to Google for over $1 billion. You know, the 3 kids who started YouTube, they sold for $1 billion and took their money. And every single one of you would take $1 billion and run. It's just that simple. You know, but that's our economics lesson. Let's move on to the privacy policy. If someone has posted your personal information or uploaded a video of you without your consent, you can request removal of the content based on our privacy guidelines. Protecting your privacy. We want you to feel safe when you're on YouTube, which is why we encourage you to let us know if videos or comments on the site violate your privacy or sense of safety. If someone has posted your personal information or uploaded a video of you without your consent, you should contact the uploader and ask them to remove the content. If you can't reach an agreement with the uploader, or if you're uncomfortable contacting them, you can request to have the content removed based on privacy guidelines. Criteria for removing content. Our privacy guidelines provide a detailed explanation of our privacy complaint process and the factors we take into account when evaluating privacy claims. For content to be considered for removal, an individual must be uniquely identifiable. If you want to use the privacy complaint process, we make sure that you are uniquely identifiable within the content you seek to report before proceeding. When assessing if an individual is uniquely identifiable, we considering the following factors: image or voice, full name, financial information, contact information, or personally identifiable information. When you report a privacy complaint, we consider public interest, newsworthiness, and consent factors in our final decision. Meaning if you're a celebrity, there's a lot. So tips on how to protect your privacy on YouTube. Think carefully before you post personal information. This includes things like the town you live in, where you go to school, and your home address. Protect your account data. Don't share your password with others. YouTube employees will never ask you for your password. Don't be fooled if someone contacts you pretending to be from YouTube. Get permission first. As a rule of thumb, you should get permission before filming other people or posting their personal information. Visit our privacy and safety settings page for a list of tools that can help you manage content and experience on the site. Check our best practices for keeping your Google account secure. Stronger security for Google account. Keep your account secure through 2-step verification. Was this article helpful? Yes, it was. Was anything about the privacy policy unclear or vague for you guys? I want to check. I want to make sure that you guys understood the privacy policy, because I think that that's a lot of very clear information on privacy. So I don't think there's anything to parse there. But if you have questions about it, let's figure that out and figure out if there's anything confusing there, because I want to clear it up. Somebody said that YouTube, it's about monopoly. YouTube's not a monopoly. There are other services. They lost. That's called meritocracy. That's called capitalism. That's called the free market at work. YouTube wasn't even first. There was River, there was Vidler, there was Vimeo, there was Dailymotion. Dailymotion still exists. There's all these video hosting platforms. YouTube doesn't have a monopoly. Guess what? The other platforms suck. Vessel was a competitor. YouTube didn't have a monopoly. Vessel was a competitor. They tried to court content creators. They tried offering them more money. It sucked. Vessel, I think they tried to get me too. I think I remember something like that. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm making money. I'm getting what I want out of this. It's like, I'm not going to upload to Vessel first. No one's on Vessel. No one cares. And they tried it, and it sucked. VidMe, there were people who went over, but VidMe couldn't afford to keep the servers. They couldn't afford to keep the servers. The UI wasn't great. There's competitors. DTube is a competitor. You could argue that Twitch is a competitor. YouTube doesn't have a monopoly, but even if it did, a monopoly that's born from the free market saying, you suck, I don't want to use something else, that's users. If we want alternatives to YouTube, we'd have to support them even if they suck. There's alternatives to Google. It's called Bing and Yahoo. You guys want to use Bing? You want to use Yahoo? Use Bing and Yahoo. I have no intention of using Bing and Yahoo because they suck. Yeah, Google has like nearly unlimited money, dude. Like Zorn Elias, here's the thing. But it's not about monopoly because you say they have enough money to fund all the government stuff. I hate the politics stuff. I'm not really interested in it. I'm a businessman, so I'm only interested in it so much as it affects my business. But here's what I'll tell you. If I was Google, you'd see what flexing looks like. If I was Google, you'd see what flexing is like. Because I wouldn't have any shame about it. I would take those billions of dollars if I was Google, or if I was a $1 trillion market cap company like Apple, and I'd buy the left side of the aisle, I'd buy the right side of the aisle, I'd buy everything in between, and I'd freaking own it. And I would say, what? And I would say, what? If I had that kind of money, I would buy everything. And say, what are you going to do about it? So, I mean, I'm just saying, that's me, though. That's me, though. I'm Dr. Doom. Like, I'm Dr. Doom. I'll just build Latveria, or I'll do like T'Challa, I build Wakanda, whatever. Doom World, baby. Doom World. Like, actually, in the comics, in Marvel Comics, Doom World was the Panther God Bass. If you guys read Dr. Doom, one of my favorite Marvel comics, the Panther God Bass looked across the multiverse, and there was only one future where humanity had peace and plenty. Doom World. So the Panther God Bass let Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, into the vibranium mine, and he took all he wanted, and he just needed some vibranium for his new armor and a couple of Doombots, and then T'Challa was just like, the Panther God just said okay, and Doom's like, yup. I mean, Doom World, baby. Like, so I'm just saying, I would be Dr. Doom, or I would be T'Challa, and I would just, all right, I got this, you know? But I'd get it right, because I'd get it right. But all I want is Dr. Doom's armor now. All I can think about is a new redesign. I might Photoshop something. All I can think now about is Infamous Iron Man issue 5 now. I'll read my comic books after this, but maybe you guys find that entertaining. Dr. Doom is like so dope. Anyway, let's talk about the child safety rules on YouTube. I think this one's cut and dry. This applies to the daddy of 5 situation. So this is actually very relevant. Child safety on YouTube. Safeguarding the emotional and physical well-being of minors is a priority of YouTube. A minor is defined as a person under the legal age of majority, usually anyone under 18 years old in most countries. Report inappropriate content. We rely on YouTube community members to report content that they find inappropriate. If you come across content that you believe violates any of our policies mentioned below, please let us know. Reporting content is anonymous. Other users won't know you made the report. Learn more. Now, this is why it's important. This is why it's really important. We had the family of 5. We had the family of 5 situation, daddy of 5, where the children were somewhat endangered, and the community stepped up, made people like Philip DeFranco aware of that. Child Protective Services got involved, and so I really think that the community does a very important service in YouTube, where we look out for the general good of the platform and the community, right? Because a lot of people didn't know about this. And then on top of that, we had the Elsagate situation, and Keemstar, say what you want about him, and he's done things in the past, but Keemstar has been really good because he's a parent now. He's a dad. You know, he's been a dad for a couple of years. He has a daughter that's old enough to watch YouTube. His daughter wants to be a YouTuber, and he like really did a good job of reporting stuff like some of the Spider-Man and Elsa things. The Elsa Gate stuff, that was horrible, and that was child exploitation, child grooming, all kinds of stuff like that. So that's pretty bad. And that's why we need policies to deal with things like that, because we shouldn't allow those things. And then Keemstar found other things, and he daily, whenever it's brought to his attention, Keemstar, I'll give him credit. Like, you don't have to like all of his content, you don't have to like him as a person, but I will give credit where credit's due, that he does a really good job of bringing to Team YouTube's attention content that needs to be taken off the platform because it's either child endangerment, child exploitation, or it's targeting children. You know, that's something that I think it bears mentioning, that the YouTube community does kind of take care of its own whenever it's something really bad like this or it involves kids. So I think that that's something that we have to give YouTube its credit for, having policies that address these things. And that's why we can't have a completely open platform, because there are things that are just not okay. And I think that we agree that child endangerment policy is pretty straightforward. The sexualization of minors. We strictly prohibit sexual explicit content featuring minors or content that sexually exploits minors. Uploading, commenting, or engaging activity that sexualizes minors may result in content being removed or the account being terminated. Good. In a case where videos contain child sexually abuse imagery, our team reports it to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who work with global law enforcement agencies. Good. Harmful or dangerous acts involving minors. We take serious any harmful or dangerous content that involves minors. Daddy of 5 situation. If your content shows a minor participate in a harmful or dangerous activity, we may remove it and apply a strike to your account. In the interest of protecting minors from viewing or imitating certain risky activities, we may age restrict content containing adults participating in activities that have a high risk of injury or death. This is prank channels. So I think that's pretty straightforward. Reporting child endangerment. If you believe a child is in imminent danger, you should reach out to your local law enforcement agency and report the situation immediately. If you see content that you think is depicting a child in danger, you can flag the video, report videos that contain sexually explicit and inappropriate content involving minors by flagging the video for child abuse, file abuse report. If you have found multiple videos, comments, or a user's entire account that you wish to report, please visit our reporting tool where you will have the ability to submit a detailed complaint. If we believe a child is in danger based on content that has been reported to us, we will assist investigations into content by law enforcement. So that's important. That's definitely something we have to be aware of, and like, it's good that YouTube has those policies, and that's why we can't just let everything slide. We can't. I know that everyone would like the internet to be much more free. I would like the internet to be much more free, but I would also like the internet to also be safer for children and for people in general, and I would like there to be less vulgarity and attacks and horrible things in the internet and in the world at large. And that's why we have policies, procedures, laws. Those things are good, and understanding them and why they exist is helpful to us as content creators. They're there for a reason. They're not out to get us, but there are things that aren't permissible. I don't agree with certain things being vague, but I don't feel like we've come across anything that's vague just yet. And if we do come across something that is vague, let's try and clarify it so that we understand it better. Adult themes in family content. This is ElsaGate. This is why ElsaGate was taken down, and why those things should have been caught by the algorithm. Those things should have been caught, and they should have been caught by manual reviewers, and people have done exposés on them before, and it shouldn't have taken the mainstream media getting involved. This should have been caught by YouTube. So I'm holding them to the fire on that one. This should have been caught, and this should have been dealt with a long time ago. It should have been cleaned up. There were channels that got to millions of subscribers doing this nonsense, and it's disgusting. Adult themes in family content. YouTube is home to videos that are intended to educate and entertain families. Videos that are made to appear as family content but contain adult themes will likely be age restricted so that only people over 18 can view the content. Videos that mislead viewers by appearing to be family content but contain sexual themes or obscene content are prohibited by YouTube and will be removed. Belatedly, That was Elsa Gate. That's why that was a problem. There were channels that made a crap ton of money, made millions of dollars, got millions of views, got to gold play button status, that were not vetted by this system and where this policy was not handled right. And it should have been. And again, it brought on another wave of adpocalypse demonetization. It was a problem. And so that's an issue. Cyberbullying and harassment. Bullying or harassing anyone is strictly prohibited. This includes abusive videos, comments, or messages. For example, the comments that I had to report where people tell me to go kill myself. I had to report those comments. Revealing someone's personal information, including sensitive, personal, identifiable information such as social security numbers, passports, or bank account numbers. Maliciously recording someone without their consent. For example, you tell someone you're not live streaming and you are live streaming, they're being recorded and streamed without their consent maliciously. You do stuff with someone on camera and they don't know they're on camera and you don't tell them, like, that is an example of this. Deliberately posting content in order to humiliate someone. Maybe you could look at a channel like, I don't want to say so-and-so because I don't think that that's what their content is, at least not right now. I guess the best example of this, I think you could make an argument for Leafy is Here being a channel that completely violates this policy. Even if you say it's satire, I'm not convinced 110% that it meets the standard of that. So deliberately posting content in order to humiliate someone, I think that you could make an argument for that one. Making hurtful and negative comments / videos about another person, that definitely seems like that's in violation of policy. Unwanted sexualization, which encompasses sexual harassment or sexual bullying in any form. Depending on what it is, a diss track video could be that. Incite to harass other users or incitement to harass other users or creators. I don't know that I've seen that many channels ever do that, but I think I've seen a couple of videos where that was the case. So those violate that particular policy. So I don't think there's anything vague in that language when we're talking about the child safety on YouTube stuff. I think all of that is pretty straightforward, but YouTube offers best practices for creators. We want creators to continue to have fun and be creative, but we ask that you follow community guidelines, which that's what we're reading. You should always be smart about content you post online. Ask permission before you upload a video featuring someone to YouTube. In addition, if you are a creator and your content features minors, you must do the following. Keep minors physically safe. Never put them in harmful situations that may lead to injury, including dangerous stunts, dares, and pranks. So prank channels, children doing prank channels, that parents, if your kids have prank channels, you gotta look at that. Don't cause emotional harm. Avoid situations that may cause emotional distress, such as exposing them to mature themes. That could be a lot of things, but I would use the example of when you say don't cause emotional harm. If you're vague on this one, Logan Paul and the Suicide Forest video would be something violating this policy where it says don't cause emotional harm. Showing a dead body of a suicide victim in your YouTube thumbnail and in the video on your YouTube channel, particularly in general, but also to a young audience, and knowing you have a young audience, that would definitely constitute don't cause emotional harm in the best practices under child safety guidelines in this particular case. So this would be part of what Logan Paul would be doing here. Beanie, are you still here moderating? Yeah. Beanie, anything you think needs to be moderated, you have my permission to do whatever you think you need to do as a moderator to keep things on track. Just be aware of that, Beanie. You have full carte blanche. I trust you to do as you will. Any of my moderators, you can do literally what you want. I'm going to trust your judgment because we're homies. Respect a minor's privacy. Secure consent from the minor's parent or legal guardian before featuring them in your video. Make sure their participation in your video is voluntary. Moderate user comments on your videos. There are tools at your disposal. I'm going to do a tutorial on that to filter and to review comments. And you can always flag comments to us for spam or abuse. I do that very regularly. When people throw the N-word at me, when people tell me to go kill myself, I make sure that those videos are reported to YouTube for abuse. Manage your video's privacy and embed settings. You have several options to control who can view your video and how it's shared on external sites. Child labor laws and regulations. In addition to securing consent, you must comply with all the laws, rules, and regulations related to working with minors. Please make sure you understand and follow the law. Some areas you should know about. Permits. Review local laws and regulations to find out if minors in your video require a permit, registration, or license to work. You should also know if you need a permit or authorization to employ minors. Wages, revenue sharing. You must allow applicable laws around paying minors for their work. In some cases, you may be required to pay a wage to minors. In others, you may be required to pay a share of revenue you are making from videos to the minors directly or set aside a portion that is protected for the minor. School and education. Participation of minors in your content must adhere with all applicable laws to protect from interference with adequate schooling and education. Work environment. Hours and breaks. The thing I'm not taking. The working environment must be safe for the minor. They must have sufficient time for rest, education, and recreation each day. Minors should not work into the night. You should also allow for all local laws for times of work and limits on work hours worked every day/week. So I think the child labor law stuff is definitely clear. And yeah, there's a provision to where if you're not a certain age and if you're not legally of a certain age, you shouldn't be able to create a YouTube channel or use YouTube as a service. Paid product placements and endorsements. If your video features a paid product placement or endorsement, you are required to check the video contains paid promotion box in your advanced settings. This was helpful. So I don't think any of this was unclear. Jason Holmes said, should a vlogger carry consent and release forms? There's an app that I believe called Shake or Handshake that gives you that. You could also just have someone disclose their consent to be filmed in the beginning of your camera footage so that you have that. And so that's how you could do it besides a verbal agreement. And typically a verbal agreement in that case, especially if the person is clearly aware that they're on camera, will usually hold up in court. So, and that's also why keeping all of your footage, not just the final edited product, is useful to archive. So, yes. Let's look at the policies on harmful and dangerous comments. Don't post videos that encourage others to do things that might cause them harm to get badly hurt, especially kids. Videos showing such harmful or dangerous acts may get age restricted or removed on their severity. I think there are a lot of channels, especially prank channels, that probably are breaking this, but the policy may not be enforced. So this looks like this is going to be straightforward too. Policies of harmful or dangerous content. While it may not be fair to say you can't show something because of what viewers might do, in response, we draw the line at any content that intends to incite violence or encourages dangerous or illegal activities that have an inherent risk of serious physical harm or death. One of my favorite channels is King of Random. And so they had to remove like 20 videos with their science experiments because they were deemed to be potentially dangerous, physically harmful science experiments that could, cause harm if they go wrong. So they had to remove those from the internet, and they were given time to do that and not given a community guideline strike. And I think that was fair considering the nature of that channel. And so it's nothing that was malicious, and it wasn't an overreach on YouTube's part, so that was fair. So if you think that certain channels are being targeted, it's because maybe you're in a bubble. Maybe you're in a bubble where you think certain channels are being targeted, but I can tell you that science YouTube channels have had to take down videos voluntarily because of what those science videos could have that affect this policy. There are prank channels that have had to take down videos. There's videos that broke copyright rules that we'll talk about that were not fully covered under fair use in the anime community, especially in the Dragon Ball community. So if you think that, well, this person or that person or whatever is being targeted, I would say that you may not be experiencing the full gamut of YouTube and the culture of YouTube, but as someone who's a YouTube marketer and as a coach and that people reach out to in the community, I hear from everybody about their grief, which is why I can tell you that aside from policy itself, aside from the policies which I'm reading to you, I can tell you that the policies are being applied across a spectrum of channels that have nothing to do with politics. There's a spectrum of channels that have been had rules enforced upon them, especially recently, because I believe that YouTube is limiting its legal liability in preparation of things that it feels the government may do. So I think that government regulations may be in the wings and that YouTube is being preemptive. And that's what I personally suspect. That's my speculation on that. But let's continue with the policies on harmful and dangerous content, and then we'll cover anything that we think is vague in here. While it might not seem fair to say that you can't show something because what viewers might do in response, we draw the line at content that intends to incite violence or encourage dangerous or illegal activities that have an inherent risk of serious physical harm or death. We also restrict content that entails to sell certain regulated or illegal goods and services through direct sales or links to sites that sell these items. These items include, but may not be limited to, drugs, pharmaceuticals that require a prescription, alcohol, nicotine products, online gambling casinos, counterfeit documents, or stolen credit card information. Videos that we consider encouraging dangerous or illegal activities include, among other things, instructional bomb making, choking games, hard drug use, or other acts where serious injury may result. A video that depicts dangerous acts may be allowed if the primary purpose is educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic, also referred to as EDSA, and isn't gratuitously graphic. For example, a news piece on the dangers of choking games could be appropriate, but posting clips out of context from the same documentary might not be. Videos that incite others to commit acts of violence are strictly prohibited from YouTube. If your video asks others to commit an act of violence or threatens people with serious acts of violence, it will be removed from the site. We are very sensitive to any harmful or dangerous content that involves minors. If your video shows a minor participating in a harmful or dangerous activity, do not post it. In the interest of protecting minors, we may age gate restrict videos containing adults participating in activities that have high risk of injury or death. That's totally responsible. What we consider when deciding age restricting or striking a video. Whether the act in question could lead to serious injury or death. Whether the individuals participating in the act are trained professionals taking all necessary precautions to prevent injury. Whether the act could be easily intimidated by minors. Whether the content could be used to commit serious acts of violence. Whether the upload is educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic in nature. So the ability of science experiments from the King of Random channel. It's like a 10 million subscriber channel, one of my favorite channels on YouTube. It's started by Grant Thompson. Great guy if you've never met him. Grant is amazing. The science experiments, some of them, even though were scientific in nature, were too easy to be replicated by minors, and if done incorrectly, could have led to serious injury or death, so those videos were taken off. And those were videos that, were otherwise fine, but that was a problem. The Tide Pod Challenge is an example of what they're talking about here. Certain prank videos, that's a problem. So that's something that you have to consider. The pharmaceutical drugs thing is very important, and the law is the law where that's concerned. So I think that those things are very cut and dry. Does anyone have questions regarding that? Does anyone have questions regarding the harmful or dangerous content policy? Because I think the policies on harmful or dangerous content, I think this policy is fine. I don't find anything vague. I don't find anything vague about this. This one's not confusing to me. So what are your thoughts here? Geese74 says, my new channel is completely safe and appropriate. I don't have anything in my videos to be harmful to worry about that part of the terms of service. Okay, cool. Good question from Wolderlich Drums. Does that include music with violent or offensive lyrics? I think the exception, that might fall under the exception of artistic in nature, which I think would cover the Eminem music that's featured on a Vivo channel. But it is possible that may or may not be covered, but I think that that's covered under artistic in nature. So I think song lyrics might be. But however, they probably could be age gated if they are explicit. I think that's a factor. Jade Logic says, I've seen a video where a guy was showing the dark web and it was showing how to hire hitmen and get weapons from there. I think that video would basically be violating this terms of service and other terms of service, because if you show how to engage in an illegal act, that's actually covered under these provisions here, which means that if you are showing people how to commit an illegal act, then that is considered in violation. So I think that is breaking terms of service. If they're showing something like say Silk Road, or how to do certain things on the dark web, then yes, that would actually be breaking terms of service. In fact, it's possible that there are things that break terms of service if you do something that is illegal in the form of, like, say, teaching people hacking, could be considered that. Yeah, I think that a disclaimer, is where that would be the key. And because then YouTube has to decide intent. We did cover copyright, but they have another section on it, so we'll get to that. We're going to go through the violent or graphic content section, and then that gives us spam and misleading metadata, and then copyright, then impersonation, and then there are additional policies on a range of subjects. So we'll get to that. I don't think we have to go through safety and tools and resources, because again, this whole video is basically about policy. So, and making sure that policy is clear. So let's look at the violent or graphic content policy, and then we can talk about this more. Violent or graphic content. It's not okay to post violent or gory content that's primarily intended to be shocking, sensational, or gratuitous. If posting graphic content in a news or documentary content, please be mindful to provide enough information to help people understand what is going on in the video. Don't encourage others to commit specific acts of violence. So we'll read more. We already have that tab up. Okay, cool. Graphic or violent content policies. Real, dramatized, or fake violence. Real depictions of graphic or violent content. Increasingly, YouTube is becoming an outlet for citizen journalism. Documentarians and others who use users who publish accounts of what is happening in their daily lives. It is inevitable that some of these videos will contain content that is violent or graphic in nature. It is not okay to post violent or gory content that is primarily intended to be shocking, sensational, or gratuitous. If a video is particularly graphic or disturbing, it should be balanced with additional context and information. If posting graphic content in a news, documentary, scientific, or artistic context, please be mindful to provide enough information to help people understand what's going on. In some cases, content may be so violent or shocking that no amount of context will allow for that content to remain on our platforms. Lastly, don't encourage others to commit specific acts of violence. If the violence shown in your video is particularly graphic, please make sure to post as much information as possible in the title and metadata to help viewers understand what they are seeing. Providing documentary or educational context will help the viewer, our reviewers, understand why they may be seeing disturbing content. For instance, a citizen journalist who captures footage of protesters being beaten and uploads it with relevant information, date, location, context, etc., would be likely allowed. However, posting the same footage without contextual or educational information may be considered gratuitous and may be removed from the site. I would also say that giving a disclaimer like viewer discretion is advised is probably fine. Dramatized depictions of graphic, violent content. Some people post videos that contain dramatized depictions of violence, much like TVs or movies, or graphic, disturbing content that contains violence or gore, or some content that is not suitable for minors and will be age restricted. Now, I don't know how this applies to certain video games. For example, things like Five Nights at Freddy's, I don't think that they apply this rule there. So I think that it's very subjective on what that means. I think that they're saying fake snuff films, fake suicide videos, or things of that nature could be problematic, or actual snuff films or suicide videos or videos of a murder. Like, I think that that's what they're going with here. That's my understanding. So I really don't think that that's necessarily vague. I think that that's pretty straightforward in my opinion. Terrorist content. We do not permit terrorist organizations to use YouTube for any purpose, including recruitment. YouTube also strictly prohibits content related to terrorism, such as content that promotes terrorist acts, incites violence, or celebrates terrorist attacks. If posting content related to terrorism for an educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic purpose, be mindful to provide enough information so viewers understand the context. Graphic or controversial footage may be subject to age restrictions or a warning screen. Is anything vague about that? Because I think that that's kind of regular. I think that that's kind of normal. I think that that makes sense. I think there's a common sense filter there. Am I right about that? Or do we have questions about what that means? Because I think that that's kind of clear. I don't see anything vague yet. I don't see anything vague just yet. Content may be age restricted. In some cases, real or dramatized or fake violence may not be suitable for all ages, similar to a movie or television ratings, or age restrictions help viewers to avoid watching content that they may not feel is acceptable for them or for their children. Learn more about age restriction content. If you wish to avoid watching age restriction content, look at enabling restricting mode. All right? What we consider when we age restrict depictions of graphic violent content. Where the video shows scenes containing physical attacks where the injury sustained is bloody or gory. Where the video shows the graphic aftermath of a violent act. Whether the shots of violence or gore are the focal point of the video. Whether the violence contained in the video is realistic when posted in a dramatic context. Whether the video contains adult themes and is targeting minors. Other factors. The length and time of the image appears in the video. Fleeting versus prolonged exposure, especially relative to the overall length of the video. The camera angle and focus, the relative clarity of the images in the video. The video thumbnail, please refer to misleading thumbnail policy. This, I think, when they talk about the aftermath of a violent act, could refer to the Logan Paul suicide forest video. I really think that this could apply to the Logan Paul suicide forest video if you look at that context. So, yeah, I think that the violence and graphic violence policy is clear. Does anybody not feel like that policy is clear? Because I didn't feel that that was unclear. Rigamortis FX Studio says, what if somebody uses special effects? That would come under the dramatized depictions of graphic violence. Some videos post violence that contain dramatized violence, much like movies and TV, so that's what would apply to you. Graphic or disturbing content that depicts violence or gore, shocking content may not be suitable for minors and will be age restricted. I would say that even if it is something that's visual effects, that constitutes movies and television. It's the same thing. So that could be dramatized, which means that it could be age gated, and you have to accept that that may be true. But if you give context, then, you know, it helps with YouTube making a decision. From what I understand, the Five Nights at Freddy's videos and the horror genre video games, and from other short films on YouTube that I've seen, then I would say that it should be fine, but it's possible it's not fine. I would say that that is about using good judgment, and they did say the amount of gore is a factor, so I would think about it in the context of PG, PG-13, and those movie ratings. So, you know, that's what I think is the key here. Now, somebody's saying, Roberto, only if they enforce it even-handedly. YouTube doesn't have an obligation to enforce anything even-handedly. Provision in paragraph 7.8 of the Terms of Service Agreement. On becoming aware of any potential violation of these terms, YouTube reserves the right, but shall have no obligation to, decide whether content complies within the requirements set out in these terms of service, and may remove such content and or terminate a user's access for uploading content which is in violation of these terms at any time without prior notice and at its sole discretion. YouTube has sole discretion. They also reserve the right but have no obligation to, meaning that YouTube can, but it reserves the right to not even weigh in on content violating policy once it's aware of it, and even then, it doesn't have to enforce its policy and punitive damages, and even then, it can decide to what extent it wants to give those damages. So they don't have to apply it even-handedly according to the legal agreement that is in the terms of use that we agree to upon becoming a user of the service, either as a viewer by using the service or as a creator by using the service. So they are not obligated, as is stated in paragraph 7.8, but shall have no obligation to decide whether content complies with content requirements set in these terms and may remove and or terminate a user's access for uploading content which is in violation of these terms at any time without prior consent and at its sole discretion. YouTube gets to be judge, jury, and executioner, and we all agreed to it. That was the agreement that we made. You can say it's unethical, but it's not illegal, and fairness is subjective. Fairness is subjective. If it's your business, you might decide what's fair to you versus what's fair to somebody else. Just saying, that's business. I'm very capitalistic in that way. I've made no bones about it. I'm very pro-business. That's what you get with me. This is a very pro-business channel. This is a very pro-capitalism channel. 2018, I don't know why I have to defend capitalism in 2018, but I do. But we agreed to it. It's there, and it's not even vague. That's the thing about it. They are telling you they have no obligation to enforce the policy at all, and they can do it when they want and to the extent that they want. They have that right, and they put it in the contract legally. I want YouTube's lawyer to write my contracts. Again, I'm not saying that it is fair. I'm not saying that it is ethical. I'm saying that in a legal sense, it doesn't have to be. And we agreed to it, so it's enforceable. Am I pro-monopolies? YouTube isn't a monopoly because Vidler exists to compete in the free market, and it lost. It's like, look, here's what I'll say about anybody crying to me about monopolies and Big Bad Google and YouTube. If I am a better cross-country runner than you, and I was a cross-country champion, by the way, I could run a 5:15-mile, a 10:26 2-mile, and an 18:18 5K at my peak back in high school. If you suck at running, I got no obligation to tie my leg behind my back to give you a shot. None. That's capitalism. I love capitalism. You can compete. You can get into the ring with Clubber Lang. And if Clubber Lang knocks you out, give up the belt, Rocky. Give up the belt, Rocky. Come back, train with Apollo Creed, give some rope-a-dope, get back in the ring, you know, and just come back and get your belt back, Rocky. Vidler had a shot. Vidler had a shot. Vessel had a shot. Vidme had a shot. The government didn't stop them. Nobody stopped them. They lost. They lost. Yeah, dude, there were video hosting platforms. Dailymotion still exists. Vimeo still exists. There are competitors to YouTube. They all suck. They lost. There's competitors to Google. You got Bing and you got Yahoo. They suck. They lost. That's the game, man. That's the game. Like, don't cry to me like there's a monopoly. There's not. We are the free market. Look, you got two phones that matter. You got the Apple iPhone and you got the Samsung Galaxy phone. And what other phones actually kind of matter? Like, let's be very real about that. You got two phones that actually matter. You got two operating systems for phones that matter. There's a Microsoft phone if you want to buy one, but it sucks. Sorry, Microsoft. Love the Surface line, but the Microsoft phone sucks. You got iPhone and you got Android. You know, you got Windows, you got Mac OS, and you got a couple flavors of Linux. But, like, you know, they can make other stuff, and it can try to compete, but it's going to lose. It's going to suck. It's going to suck. If I've got a gold medal, I'm not obligated to step down and let someone else have a gold medal and take a bronze or a silver. That's capitalism. I'm like, you lose, man. You lose. So that's, you know, that's what I'm, like, that's, you want to ask where I stand on it? Like, I hate politics. Politics is stupid. You know what I love? I love business. I love winning. I love making money. And anybody can compete, but you're not obligated to be allowed to win. You're allowed to compete. And if you suck and you lost, you freaking lost. Because you could have all you could have all supported content creators on Vessel. And Vessel could have been a competitor to YouTube. Why weren't any of you on Vessel? You guys could have financially supported Vidme and voluntarily paid for Vidme. You didn't. Vidme went down. It's gone. It's gone. So don't cry to me about YouTube now. Don't cry to me about YouTube now, because all of you could have supported Vessel, all of you could have supported Vidler, all of you could have supported vid.me, and it didn't happen. Everyone could have supported it with their wallet. They could have pulled out their wallet, you know, and they could have supported it, and they didn't. And so it's gone now. That's the market. That's capitalism. That's the free market. I love the free market. You win, you win. You lose. But guess what? Live to fight another day. Or don't. It's all good. It's all good. Content creators. Well, with the content creators, the cool thing is with content creators is that everybody has their time at some point. Like, there was a time when video game channels were everything. There was a time when vlogs were everything. There's a time right now storytime YouTubers are doing really well. There's a time for cinematic film channels were big for a while. Like, there's a time for everything. Like, so, you know, I think about content creators all the time, but you got choices. I mean, you got choices, but you can decide what's going to help you the most. And, you know, we all got to decide what we're going to do and, like, what we want to support. And if that means maybe we got to, like, support something with our wallet, maybe we got to support it with our wallet. You know, if we want competition, if we want those things, if we want those options, I mean, that's what happens. But if a content creator or platform can't sustain itself, I tell you guys all the time, support content creators on Patreon. You, like, you know, 3D printing geeks, Roberto, it's easy for you to say because I got my piece of the pie. Nothing's easy for me to say, dude, because you weren't there when I didn't have my piece of the pie. You weren't there for the 6 years of trying to make it, the 5 years trying to make it, dude. You know, I'm just saying. And then people weren't there for the 10 years before that of developing skills. Like, everybody says it's easy to people who made it, but it's not, you know? But anyway, let's move on to the spam and misleading metadata, because that one's going to be really important. That one's going to be, like, probably the one that I think has the most room to be vague. Because here's the thing, we haven't ran into a vague content policy yet. We haven't, like, that's what's surprising to me. I would have thought that this would have been a lot harder to figure out what they mean, or that they weren't clear, but they've been incredibly clear, at least To me, I don't know. I mean, you guys haven't said that you can't follow it, you know. Spam, deceptive practices, and policies. We are constantly working to keep YouTube safe and free from spam, scams, and other deceptive practices that attempt to take advantage of the YouTube community. Below you can learn in detail what constitutes a violation of these policies. All right, dope. Video, channel, and comment spam. It is not okay to post large amounts of untargeted, unwanted, repetitive content in videos, comments, private messages, or other places on the site. If the main purpose of your content is to drive people off YouTube and onto another site, it will likely violate our spam policies. It is not okay to post large amounts of repetitive and or re-upload videos to your channel. If the main purpose of your channel is to monetize other channels' content, it will likely violate our policies. If you believe your copyright protected work has been posted on YouTube without authorization, you may submit a copyright infringement notification. Short version of this is if you upload a bunch of Twitch compilations, that's not really transformative, and those Twitch streamers could say, yeah, take down this video, and like, so that's real. If you keep spamming stuff, buy my book, and it's always just things to say buy your book, but it's not a paid ad, that could be it. This could also be, from YouTube's point of view, if you post videos to YouTube that only have the explicit goal of promoting your upcoming Twitch stream or your Twitch channel, and it's not an ad that you bought, that could be what it is. If you buy an ad to do that, that's fine. And if you're a Twitch streamer, I would actually recommend that you make a movie trailer style ad and buy ad space in YouTube and let that thing ride and throw some money at it. So that, I think, is something to think about. Artificial traffic. This one is pretty easy. Artificial traffic. Anything that artificially increases the number of views, likes, comments, or other metrics, either through the use of automatic systems or by serving videos to unsuspecting viewers, is against our terms. Remember Rickrolling back in the old days? That's what this would be. Additionally, content that solely exists to incentivize viewers for engagement, views, likes, comments is prohibited. Videos and accounts that are found to be in violation of our terms may be terminated and removed from YouTube. That's pretty serious. Beware that if you hire someone to promote your channel, their decisions may impact your channel. Any method that violates our terms of service can result in a video or channel takedown, whether it's an action taken by you or someone you hired. Check our blog post and article on policies around getting YouTube views through third-party services and more. So that's the problem. Misleading metadata. Metadata refers to any and all additional information provided on a video. This includes the title, description, annotations, and thumbnail. There aren't even annotations anymore. All right, update this, YouTube. The reason that we have metadata is so that you can add additional contextual information to your videos. Please do not use these features to game or trick our search algorithms. All metadata should be representative of the content in the video. Among other things, metadata added in an attempt to game search algorithms will lead to removal of your video and a strike against your account. Please select a reasonable number of tags that most closely reflect your video content. Please also only add tags to the tag section of your metadata. Adding additional tags to the description of your video may constitute spam and can result in the removal of your video. So, yeah. TWF. We covered that in YouTube's policy, and their definition is the right one in the context of the user agreement and terms of service that you agree to by being a user of the platform, as stated in the first section of the first paragraph of this document, that by being a user of the platform, you are accepting the terms. And I believe that that is in paragraph 2, section 2.1 of the terms of service, that in order to use the service, you must firstly agree to the terms of service, and you may not use the service if you do not accept the terms. You accept the terms by simply using the service via section 2, paragraph 2. So if you use YouTube, you are agreeing to the terms of service, which includes agreeing to their policies and how their policies define those things in the context of using the service. That is the nature of a legal agreement. And thus, saying, why is YouTube's definition the right one? It's because it's the one that you agreed to through a legally binding contract via paragraph 2, section 2 of using the service. If you do not agree with YouTube's definition of this, you are free to terminate the usage of the service at any time. I believe this is part of section 2, paragraph 12. So that's why we're reading the terms of service of YouTube. Actually, it's paragraph 11, section 2. If you want to terminate your legal agreement with YouTube, you may do so by A, notifying YouTube at any time, B, closing your YouTube account. Your notice should be sent in writing to YouTube's address, which is set forth in the beginning of these terms. So if you don't want to accept YouTube's policy at any point, you have the wherewithal to end your relationship with YouTube via paragraph 11, section 2 of the agreement that you consent to by using the service in paragraph 2, section 2 of this legally binding agreement by being on the platform. So if you're wondering what the reason is, that's the reason that their definition is the quote-unquote right one. You can agree with it or disagree with it in your mind or publicly, but within the context of your usage of the platform, you legally agreed to it, and therefore you're legally accounted to it, obligated to it. You're legally obliged to honor it and to respect that, or YouTube reserves the right to exact any penalties and remedies as stated in the terms of service to which you agreed. But I'm not a lawyer. Just saying, read your terms of service. You agreed to this, it's legally binding. Misleading or racy thumbnails. I mean, this is why, again, I want YouTube's lawyer to write my contracts. Misleading or racy thumbnails. Please select the thumbnail that best represents your content. Selecting a sexually provocative thumbnail may result in the removal of your YouTube thumbnail or age restriction of your video. The thumbnail is the title card that will be shown next to your video across the site and should be flagged, should be appropriate for all ages. If you are uploading a parody, review, or vlog, please choose appropriate representative metadata which will not confuse users into believing that your video is something it is not. This is especially important to remember in relation to our current events or viral videos. Please select a thumbnail and title that clearly illustrate that your video is commentary and not footage from an actual event. Videos that are deemed deceptive will be removed from the site, and strikes may be issued to the uploader. Scams. Some users create content which attempts to trick others for their own financial gain. Content that deliberately tries to mislead users for financial gain may be removed, and in some cases, strikes may be issued to the uploader. Be wary of claims that seem too good to be true, as they likely are. I think that's self-explanatory. YouTube has a zero policy for extortion and or blackmail. If someone has recorded a sexually exploitive video of you and has sent the link, please flag this content immediately for removal and contact your local law enforcement. So that's the blackmail extortion policy. I think that one is really cut and dry. I don't see any anything wrong with what they're saying in this one, so I don't think it bears any additional explanation, and I think the context of it is fairly clear. So that's something that I think people need to take a look at. This is easy. This is the easy part. Scams, fraud, deceptive practices. This is meant to protect consumers. This is meant to protect all of us. So I think that is easily one of the most cut and dry parts of the policy. So I don't think that one is horrible. I think that's clear. I don't think that's vague. Is that policy vague? I mean, is that vague to anybody? I'm just, I'm asking. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm reading the policies out loud for you here. So is that vague or no to you guys? Because I think that one's cut and dry, right? You are allowed to promote your video elsewhere by embedding the video, so that's not a problem. They're talking about instances where, let's say you upload a video that's only purpose is to promote your Twitch stream. They're talking about that. If you do a video, that's not an ad that is for something like that, that's what they're talking about. You can embed your video and you can promote it, so that's fine. Copyright. This is probably going to be this is the one I'm not looking forward to, because I think this is probably going to be really long, and this one is going to be like, I really think that this one's going to be, oh god. Does this have its whole own section? Oh my god. Maybe I'll read this later. I'll skip ahead to something else. Jesus Christ. I really don't want to deal with that. I'll come back to copyright last, because I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with copyright right now. It just looked painful to look at. Guys, do you guys want to hook me up with some super chats for painfully sitting through this, because this is brutal on me, and I think I need to put more Freon in the air conditioning, because it's getting bad in here. This one's probably easy, so this is good. Impersonations. Policy on impersonations. I think I'm being a trooper. I think I'm being a trooper sitting through this for almost 3 hours for you guys, reading the terms of service and going through it, right? Activities such as copying a user's channel layout, using a similar username, posing as another person in the comments, emails, or videos may be considered harassment. In cases where our team determines that an account was established to impersonate another channel or individual, the account will be removed. Impersonation can happen on YouTube in two ways: impersonation of a channel or an individual. Impersonation of a channel. A user copies a channel's profile, background, text, or writes comments to make it look like it's somebody else's channel, posted in the comments. If you feel that yours or another creator's channel is being impersonated, please revisit our reporting tool. Impersonation of an individual. A user creates a channel or video using another individual's real name, image, and or personal information to deceive people into thinking that they are someone else on YouTube. If you feel that you are being impersonated, report it using our web form. What doesn't count as impersonation? Impersonation does not include channels or videos pretending to represent a business, in which case you may want to consider submitting a legal complaint to our legal reporting forms. All right, that's straightforward. I really don't think that is vague at all. Drone123 Tech, thank you for the $2 super chat. Thanks, Roberto. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. So that's their policy on impersonation. All right, so here are their additional policies, and then we'll get into copyright, and then we're done. Additional policies: vulgar languages. Some language is not appropriate for younger audiences. Use of sexually explicit language or excessive profanity in your video or associated metadata may lead to age restriction of your video. So that's age gating for you. Inactive accounts policy. If general users are expected to be active members, users are expected to be active members within the YouTube community. If an account is found to be overly inactive, the account may be reclaimed by YouTube without notice. Inactivity may be considered as not logging in the site for the last 6 months, never having uploaded video content, not actively partaking in watching or commenting on videos or channels. So basically, if you just have a dead lurker account and you don't use it, YouTube will just delete that account. This is for a lot of reasons. Paint and Sound X, Roberto, please refresh us for the reason for purpose of doing a voluntary terms of service reading. Because I said I would do it like 4 months ago or 6 months ago and I never did it. Age requirements on Google products. Oh wait, encouraging terms of service violations. This one's actually important. If you post content that encourages other users to violate our terms of service, the content may be removed, your account may be penalized, and in some cases your account may be terminated. And there are people who have done that. Age requirements on Google products. Please refer to this article on age requirements on Google accounts to learn about the age requirements for YouTube. Let's actually take a look at that. Age requirements on Google accounts. Below are the minimum age requirements to manage your own Google account. In countries where Family Link is available, parents can help their children create and manage a Google account. When a child reaches their country's minimum age, they can manage their own account. For all countries not listed below, the minimum age to manage your own Google account is 13 years of age. Please note, these requirements may not be applicable to G Suite users, including accounts in G Suite for education domains. So that's an education thing that YouTube does. So legal age, unless listed here, 13 years old to have a Google/YouTube account. Asia, 13. South Korea, 14. Europe, Australia is 14, Belgium 16, Bulgaria 16, Croatia 16, Cyprus 16, Czech Republic 16, Denmark 13 plus, Estonia 16 plus, Finland 16 plus, France 16, Germany 16, Greece 16, Hungary 16, Ireland 16, Italy 16, Latvia 16, Lithuania 16, Luxembourg 16, Malta 16, Netherlands, 16 years of age. Poland, 16 years of age. Portugal, 16 years of age. Slovakia, 16 years of age. Slovenia, 16 years of age. Spain, 16 years of age. Sweden, 13 plus. United Kingdom, 13 plus. North America, Canada, 13. Mexico, 13. United States, 13. Oceania, Australia, 13. New Zealand, 13. South America, Argentina, 13. Brazil, 13. Chile, 13. Service-specific age requirements. YouTube. When a YouTube video has been age restricted, a warning screen is displayed and only users 18 or older can watch it. Learn about age-restricted videos. Google Payments. Most forms of payment are restricted to users who are 18 or older. For age requirements for Play gift card redemption, check your country's terms of service. AdSense. How YouTubers get paid. 18. AdWords, buying ads, 18. Across Google services, if you enter a date of birth indicating you are not old enough to have a Google account, your account may be disabled. If you incorrectly entered your birth date, learn how to re-enable your account. Okay, so there are the age requirements. So that's straightforward. Now we have to get into the thing that is really irritating, because all of that, there should be no vagueness there. We haven't really come into a vague policy just yet. We haven't even come into a vague policy just yet, but copyright. Copyright is where I could see confusion, and I really am not looking forward to this one, because I think it's going to be long and dry and legal, and there's like 6 sections of it, and it's not going to be fun at all for me. So, fantastic. You're welcome. So, we've gone through the entire terms of service. So, we went through terms of service. We went through all the community guidelines, and it's a lot of them. We went through everything, and nothing we found between us was vague except clarifying, well, what's an attack? And we went and we found 3 sources of definitions to give us context on what that means. So we had everything else spelled out for us. Now it's copyright. And this might be one of the more significant issues for the majority of content creators, because the majority of the rest of this is common sense. The majority of you, this is common sense. Not doing nudity or sexual content, that's common sense. Harmful and dangerous content, a lot of common sense. Violent or graphic content, common sense. The hateful thing, a lot of people want to say that's up for debate. They made it really cut and dry for us, actually. Harassment, cyberbullying, that was less vague than I ever thought it would be. Threats, that was less vague than I thought it would be. Privacy was really interesting. Child safety, I think we all got behind that 110%. Impersonation, that was easy. The additional policies, we don't love them, but some of them makes total sense. Spam and misleading, I think we all want to be protected from that, so we were good on all of that. The only thing really harmful and dangerous content, we went through examples. We brought up Logan Paul. I think that copyright is the only thing that probably affects the far majority of us, that there's anything that we should really be truly concerned about. So let's look at what they have to say here. So this one is submit a copyright infringement notification, the thing that I think is constantly abused. If your copyright protected work was posted on YouTube without authorization, you may submit a copyright infringement notification. Be sure to consider whether fair use, let's look up fair use, fair dealing, or a similar exception to copyright applies before you submit. These requests should only be sent in by the copyright owner or an authorized agent to act on the owner's behalf. The fastest and simplest way to submit a copyright takedown notice is through our web form. You'll find this easier on a desktop or laptop than on a mobile device or tablet. The name you enter as copyright owner will be published on YouTube in place of disabled content. If you are able to provide a valid legal alternative, such as a company name or the name of a representative you have authorized to act on your behalf, we will review and apply it if appropriate. This will become part of the public record of your request along with your descriptions of the work allegedly infringed. All information, including your full legal name and email address, are part of the full takedown notice, which may be provided to the uploader. If you choose to submit a copyright takedown request, please remember that you are initiating a legal process. Do not make false claims. Misuse of this process may result in suspension of your account or other legal consequences. If you are a company and own exclusive rights to a large amount of content that requires regular online rights administration, or you may not or may want to apply for access to YouTube's Content ID system or to our content verification program. You will also accept free-form copyright infringement notifications submitted via text or email. This is helpful, but here's the issue. In a copyright complaint, part of the problem that I have is they tell you that your name will be published, and they tell you that that'll be part of public record, which is fine. And they say all information, including your full legal name and email address, are part of the full takedown notice, which may be provided to the uploader. But they don't tell you whether the rest of this information is and I'll just we're fine. Like, let's just go with copyright infringement here. Who's affected? I am. There's a part of this where you're asked to fill out your actual address and this information, but they never tell you whether or not that information ever gets submitted or provided to the uploader. They just say that your email address and this information over to the left does. They don't say whether the information on the right does, and I think that that's important. Now, here's the issue. The issue is also whether or not what am I thinking about? Whether or not you have a P.O. box. If you have a P.O. box, then I think that you are good to go with regard to putting information in there, because then you're still safe because it's just your P.O. box. If you don't have a P.O. box, then I find that to be troubling or in some way problematic if you don't have a P.O. box. So I don't like that. So that, I feel, is a problem. Now, what is fair use? Fair use is a legal doctrine that says that you can use copyrighted material under certain circumstances without getting permission from the copyright owner. Check the videos below for helpful examples of fair use. These are videos that they say are examples of fair use. Here are the fair use guidelines. Different countries have different rules about when it's okay to use material without the copyright owner's permission. For an example, the United States, works of commentary, criticism, research, teaching, or news reporting might be considered fair use. Some other countries have very similar idea called fair dealing that may work differently. Courts analyze potential fair use according to the facts of each specific case. You probably want to get legal advice from an expert before uploading videos that contain copyrighted material. The 4 factors of fair use. In the United States, fair use is determined by a judge who analyzes how each of the 4 factors of fair use applies to each specific case. So, I mean, this is going to be a breakdown here of what, fair use actually is. And this is actually something that's important to talk about, because I think that the majority of people on YouTube don't know what fair use is in the legal context of what the courts and what the law around copyright says fair use actually is. And so breaking down these 4 points becomes important. The purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is for commercial nature or nonprofit or educational purposes, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, and the effect of the use upon potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. So did somebody lose money on this because you did it? So these things are all the considerations that are used in determining fair use. And I think that we have to, go through this piece by piece here, because I think that for people, it's just very easy to say, oh, well, it's fair use because I found it on the internet. That's not what fair use is, and that's why we're going to go through this, because again, people are using the internet and they think fair use is like, oh, I can do this because it's fair use. No, it's not. It's not fair use, and we're going to get into when is it fair use, because again, I think most people are just getting that wrong. I think most people just want to believe that what they're doing constitutes fair use because it's advantageous for them to believe that, but that doesn't necessarily make it true. So the purpose and part one, the purpose and character of the use, including whether such is for commercial nature or nonprofit or educational purposes. Courts typically focus on whether the use is transformative. That is, whether it adds new expression or meaning to the original, or whether it merely copies from the original. Commercial uses are less likely to be considered fair, though it's possible to monetize a video and still take advantage of the fair use defense. H3 is probably the gold standard of this. The nature of the copyrighted work. Using material from primarily factual works is more likely to be fair than using purely fictional works. Case in point, any footage of a real-life event. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. Borrowing small bits of material from an original work is more likely to be considered fair use than borrowing large portions. However, even a small taking may weigh against fair use in some of its situations if it constitutes the heart of the work. The effect of use upon potential market or value of the copyrighted work. Uses that harm the copyright owner's ability to profit from his or her original work are less likely to be fair uses. Courts have sometimes made exception under this factor in cases involving parodies. Parodies might be fine, but if you decide to take a Twitch streamer's Twitch stream and do compilations, but it's the most it's 2 minutes of a 5-minute video, that's probably not going to cut it. That's probably not going to be considered fair use. Or even if you just have a bunch of Twitch streamers compilations, it might not be fair use because, or if you do the kill shot of a Twitch streamer's stream and put that up, it may not be considered fair use because you might substantially be profiting from that in a way that they're not, especially if you got more views than them. So that might be a factor. So there's a lot of problems there. Fair use myths. There's some misinformation out there about what might lead you to believe fair use automatically applies to you. Say a few magic words. This is actually no silver bullet that will guarantee you are protected by fair use. When you use copyrighted material you don't own, courts will consider all 4 of the factors described above and weigh them on a case-by-case basis. Here are some common myths. If I give credit to the copyright owner, my use is automatically fair use. Wrong. So nope. As you saw above, transformativeness is usually the key in fair use analysis. Giving credit to the owner of a copyrighted work won't by itself turn a non-transformative copy of the material into fair use, such as all rights go to the author and I do not own, do not automatically mean you are making fair use the material, nor do they mean you have the copyright owner's permission. So that would, an example of that would be, the following is a fan-based parody. Blah 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 is owned by blah 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 animation, so and so. Please support the official release. That is not enough to constitute fair use. That, myth number 2. If I post a disclaimer on my video, see, I just gave an example. There it is right there. As we noted above, there are no magic words that you will do for this. Posting the posting the 4 factors of fair use in your video or including the phrase no infringement intended won't automatically protect you from the copyright infringement. The following is a fan-based parody. Blah, 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 blah. Nope, doesn't do it. Does not do it. 3, entertainment or nonprofit use is automatically fair use. Courts will look carefully at the purpose of your use in evaluating whether it is fair, but the 3 remaining factors also need to be considered. Declaring your upload to be for the entertainment purposes only, for example, is unlikely to tip the scales in the fair use balancing test. Similarly, nonprofit uses are favored in the fair use analysis, but is not automatically fair use by itself. So not monetizing the video isn't good enough. Which means if you're a small YouTuber and you don't have monetization, that's not good enough. Even if you've added a little something of your own to someone else's content, you may not be able to take advantage of their fair use defense, particularly if your creation fails to add new expression, meaning, or message to the original. As with all cases discussed here, courts will consider all 4 factors of the fair use test, including the quality of the original used. So the quantity of the original used. So doing a commentary video mostly could be fair use because now it's not the thing itself, but it is now a commentary on the thing itself. So commentary could be, depending on the degree of transformative stuff and the things that you add and the portions and proportionality, could be fair use. And that's where you would have those protections. So I think that that's cut and dry. YouTube's fair use protection. YouTube receives lots of takedown requests under copyright law asking us to remove videos that copyright owners say are infringing. Sometimes those requests target videos that seem like clear examples of fair use. Courts have held that rights holders must consider fair use before they send a copyright takedown notice. So in many cases, though it's a very small percentage of copyright takedowns overall, we ask rights holders to confirm they've done the analysis. In some very special cases, we've asked the video's creator to join in a new effort that protects some of the very best examples of fair use. On the YouTube copyright takedown requests. Through this initiative, YouTube indemnifies creators whose fair use videos have been subject to takedown notices for up to $1 million of legal costs in the event the takedown notices results in a lawsuit for copyright infringement. This ensures that those creators have a chance to protect their work and makes the entire creative world better by educating people on both the importance and limits of fair use doctrine. Please note that the videos featured above represent a minuscule portion of the number of copyright takedown requests we've received. They're even a small percentage of the number of potential fair uses that are subject to takedowns. YouTube is only able to offer fair use protection to a small number of individual videos each year that we choose based on a variety of factors. We try to select videos that are the most illustrative of fair use. If your video is chosen for this effort, we'll get in touch with you. Please don't contact us asking us to protect your video. We'll find you if we're able to offer you this protection. While we can't offer a legal defense to everyone, we'll remain vigilant about takedown notices. They're not nearly as vigilant as they should be. Impacting all creators. You may have seen press coverage of some cases where we've been asked rights owners to reconsider takedowns or reinstate fair use videos, for example, and then they give all these examples. And then they have more resources. So this is where the copyright and fair use stuff is extremely detailed and important. God, this is so much and so dry around the copyright stuff. Like submitting a counter notification, this is all stuff that's your YouTube dashboard. I don't want to read you the instructions for submitting a copyright notice, really. I mean, like, or I'm going to read this one, but like this stuff is not even vague with the copyright stuff. This is really clear. Like, it's painful even. It's dry. They're like, so that's like a counter notification. Fine. Counter notification basics. A counter notification is a legal request for YouTube to reinstate a video that has been removed for alleged copyright infringement. The process may only be pursued in instances where the upload was removed or disabled as a result of a mistake, misidentification of the material to be removed or disabled, such as fair use. It should not be pursued under any other circumstances. If your video was removed but does not fit the criteria above, you may want to seek a retraction or simply wait for your strike to expire. Please note that when we move forward the counter notice, it will include the full text of the counter notice, including any personal information you provide. The claimant may use this information to file a lawsuit against you in order to keep the content from being restored to YouTube. So your publicly available information, so be careful about that. That's where I don't like those kind of things. By submitting a counter notification, you consent to having your information revealed in this way. We will not forward the counter notification to any party other than the original claimant. Counter notifications may be submitted by the video's original uploader or an agent authorized to act in their behalf, such as an attorney. To submit a counter notification, please use our web form. It is accessible via the copyright notices section of your account. After we process your counter notification by forwarding it to the claimant has 10 business days to provide us with evidence that they have initiated a court action to keep the content down. This time period is a requirement of copyright law, so please be patient. If your account has been suspended for multiple copyright violations, the counter notification web form will be inaccessible. If appropriate, you may submit a free form counter notification. Was this article helpful? Yes. I don't like the 3 strikes YouTube copyright system because the copyright system is subject to abuse. And so I don't like the 3 strikes copyright system. The 3 strikes copyright system was a concession of the lawsuit between YouTube and Viacom circa 2000 and I want to say 2007 through 2013, which gave us the modern incarnation of what we have with YouTube copyright. So I don't like that, and I think that now that Viacom has turned the corner, unless they haven't, on digital, that we should be able to get better accommodations for copyright, and that any channel that's going to be taken down or terminated, I think should have a grace period and should be provided an archive of their content and the ability to notify their subscriber base of where to find them. YouTube does not have that in their policy. They're not obligated. That is what I would prefer. That is what I would like to be better. But it's not the way it is, and I understand there are reasons why. So it is what it is. These are the policies. I would want slightly different policies, but everything that's here in the terms of service, everything that YouTube's lawyers wrote, give me that. Yeah, if I build a social media platform, I'm taking this terms of service contract because that's in my best interest. So, Gabriel, I have no copyright strikes. No strikes. And you know why? Because my content is 100% original. There's no reaction videos. It's nothing like of other people's stuff. It's 100% original content. So anyone that does that, I could easily not only disprove and file a counterclaim, but I would just sue them into oblivion. I would just get my lawyer and I would just sue anybody who does it because I do 100% original content. So, I mean, it's me on camera the entire time. That's my content. So, I wouldn't have copyright strikes. And if somebody did a false strike, I would literally just sue them. And YouTube provides me the tools. So, that's how it would go. That's how it would go. Copyright strike basics. Ugh, God. This might be the last thing we do on copyright because I think that the rest of it doesn't even, like, the rest of it you guys can, the rest of this, like, you guys can look up, like, because it's like, we're almost 3 hours, we're 3 hours in. This is the last one. Copyright strike basics. This content is about copyright strike basics. If you're looking for information about community guideline strikes, which are different than copyright strikes, actually, we will read community guideline strikes. We'll read that, and then we'll kill this. So if you get a copyright strike, that means that your video has been taken down from YouTube because a copyright owner sent us a complete and valid legal request asking us to do so. When a copyright owner formally notifies us that you don't have their permission to post their content on the site, we take down your upload to comply with copyright law. Keeping in mind that videos can be removed from the site for different reasons, not all of which are copyright related. Also, Content ID claims do not result in a strike. Deleting a video with a strike won't resolve the strike. Click below to see how to resolve a copyright strike. What happens when you get a copyright strike? We all make mistakes. When you get a copyright strike, it acts as a warning. However, copyright strikes may affect your ability to monetize. In addition, if you live stream or archive, live stream is removed, or for copyright, your access to live stream will be restricted for 90 days. If you receive 3 copyright strikes, your account, along with associated channels, is subject to termination. All of the videos uploaded to your account will be removed. You won't be able to create new channels. That's pretty harsh. I don't think it should go that far. That's personally me. How to get information about your strike, sign the YouTube, click the top right of your account icon, click Creator Studio, click left on Video Account Manager, select Copyright Notices, click the copyright strike next to a video, learn more about the removal. How to resolve a copyright strike. There are 3 ways to resolve a copyright strike. Wait for it to expire. Copyright strikes expire after 90 days as long as you complete copyright school. Get a retraction. You can contact the person who claimed your video and ask them to retract their claim of copyright infringement. Submit a counter notification. If your video was mistakenly removed because it was misidentified as infringing or qualifies as potential fair use, you may wish to submit a counter notification. So that is copyright strikes. Community guideline strike basics. How bad is this? All right, this isn't too bad. Community guideline strikes basis. This is the content about community guideline strikes. If you're looking for information about copyright strikes, which are a different type, then go to the copyright strikes basics. Community guideline strikes are issued when our reviewers are notified of a violation of the YouTube community guidelines, which we already read in detail. This includes but is not limited to videos that contain nudity or sexual content, violent or graphic content, harmful or dangerous content, hateful content, threats, spam, misleading metadata, or scams. Sometimes content is removed for reasons other than community guideline violations, such as the safety of the person who posted the video, a first-party privacy complaint, court order, or other non-malicious issue. In these cases, the uploader won't receive a strike and the account will not be penalized. So YouTube can take down videos without issuing strikes or penalties. What happens if you receive a strike? If a strike is issued, you'll get an email and see an alert in your account's channel settings with information on why your content was removed. Example, for sexual content or violence. If you receive a strike, make sure to review the reason your content was removed and learn more in the Policy Center so that it doesn't happen again. We understand that users make mistakes and don't intend to violate our policies. That's why strikes don't last forever. Each strike will expire 3 months after it is issued. While you have a strike on your account, you may not have access to some features on YouTube. You can see what features are active in the channel settings. I don't need to go into that. Multiple strikes. If you receive strikes on your account, here's what happens. First strike. Account with 1 community guideline strike may be restricted from live streaming. If your account has been restricted from live streaming, you are prohibited from using another channel to live stream on YouTube. This applies for as long as the restriction remains active on your account. Violation of this restriction is considered a circumvention under our terms of service and may result in termination of your account. I want to read that one back to you. Accounts with 1 community guideline strike may be restricted from live streaming. If your account has been restricted from live streaming, you are prohibited from using another channel to live stream on YouTube. This video applies as long as the restriction remains active on your channel. Violation of this restriction is considered circumvention under our terms of service and may result in termination of your account. Just so we're clear. Second, if your account receives 2 community guideline strikes within a 3-month period, you won't be able to post new content to YouTube for 2 weeks. If there are no further issues, full privileges will be restored automatically after the 2-week period. Each strike will remain on your account and expire separately 3 months after it was issued. Third strike, if your account receives 3 community guideline strikes within a 3-month period, your account will be terminated. Now, people have appealed this. If you think your content didn't violate YouTube's community guidelines, you can appeal the strike on your account. Was this helpful? Yes. So I think that is cut and dry. I think that's clear. I think that is 100% clear. Living with the Guzmans, thank you for the $10 super chat. Super chat, guys. Yes, thank you so much, Living with the Guzmans. Love you guys. Love you guys. Shamika D. Trini says, I have a friend that have 2 strikes, but have another channel that have no strikes. They was thinking of streaming on another channel. Tell them don't do it, because YouTube will delete their channel. YouTube, if you have 1 strike, 2 strikes, and you try to stream on another channel, you're gone. That's it. It's in the terms of service. It's in the community guidelines. They are not even vague about it. This was one that I was interested in what they do with community guideline strikes. And so none of this is vague. We haven't ran into, like, is any of that vague to you guys? Because we went through the terms of service, paragraph for paragraph, point for point. We went through the terms of service, paragraph for paragraph, point for point, all of it, all of it. And there was nothing that was vague. It was legalese. So if you just don't understand the lawyer speak, that's one thing. But it's not vague. They are ridiculously abundantly clear about what they have going on in the terms of service, who's liable for what they can do, what they are allowed to do, what's legal. They, like, the terms of service are long and dry, and legal redundancy is there, but it's not hard to figure out what they're saying. Like, not really. Not if you can use the platform. If you can upload a video to YouTube and you are 18 years of age and able to enter a legal agreement, then the terms of service are abundantly clear. If you are 18 years old, fully in your intellectual faculties and legally acceptable state of mind and mental health, then you can understand the terms of service if you can upload a video to YouTube. And that's cut and dry in the terms of service. It's a legally binding agreement. And then the policies weren't that hard to figure out when we read them. They felt very much like common sense and what you would expect. And a lot of it is just, yeah, why would you not adhere to this? Nothing felt restrictive or prohibitive when I read these things. Like, oh, I can't do this, I can't. There was nothing there. There was nothing there that felt vague. There was nothing there that felt restrictive. There was nothing in those policies at all that felt, thanks, man. There was nothing there in those policies that felt weird in terms of, well, how do I interpret this? Like, it seemed laid out clearly, to me, at least. And I don't know. I mean, you guys tell me. None of that felt like it was hard to follow. None of that felt like, I mean, you don't have to agree with or like it, but I don't feel like any of that language was confusing. I don't feel like any of it said something that we couldn't have guessed or assumed was true. So I don't feel uncomfortable with a lot of this. Now, in terms of the enforcement of the policy, but they say that it's at their sole discretion, which as a company, that makes sense. That's within the rights or purview of a business. I mean, that's not abnormal. So, I mean, we've read through everything, so now let's talk about it. So let me switch the camera to the chat, and let's talk about this. So guys, I read painfully. I painfully sat through and read. Let me get in camera view here. I sat there and I painfully read through all of the terms of service, the community guidelines, and even the copyright stuff for YouTube, and none of it was hard language to decipher. None of it felt like anything we couldn't have assumed was true, and none of it felt like it was over the top, and none of it felt prohibitive, at least from my point of view. Like, that was a rough reading, and I'm almost out of water here. It's like 3 hours of reading legalese. Weakbait says, is it against YouTube rules to stream on YouTube and Twitch at the same time, even if you have no copyright strike and no community strike? And thank you for your time, by the way. Nothing we read in the rules stated that you couldn't concurrently stream. I don't know what Twitch's terms of service are, and I'm not reading Twitch's terms of service. Yeah, H3 does it, so I'd imagine that's allowed by Twitch and by YouTube. Now here's the thing I will say. YouTube's automation systems and quality control of their automation systems that do enforce the policies, the automation systems, not the human beings, the automation systems, a lot of them get it wrong sometimes, and they kind of suck sometimes. Not always, but enough of the time to be a problem, to be problematic, right? So YouTube quality control could be better. It could definitely be better, but that's any business, and I feel for them, and they do an impossible job. So I've been an employee at a company before. It sucks sometimes. You don't always have resources. You don't always have bosses that will like do the thing that you want to do or the way that you think it should be done. So I don't fault the rank and file employees for that. And the engineers, they got a rough job to do because managing this monster is impossible. It's too big. It's too big. It's too big to handle, and it grew way too fast. Even with 12 years, it still grew way too fast. So, it's a problem, right? But I think that if they could do better, it would give a lot of the community a little bit more faith in them. There are people that because of certain events and recent events, they have no faith in YouTube and their faith is shaken, and I understand that. Some of it is automations, some of it is decisions YouTube made and were in their rights to make. And so I take issue when YouTube gets things wrong, but they get so much more right than wrong. The wrong they get shouldn't be diminished, but it is at scale infinitesimal. At scale, it's infinitesimal. Not when you're talking about 400 hours of video uploaded every minute of every day. It's insanity. It's insanity. So I can't really be too critical of how that is handled given that situation. Having read the terms of service out loud with you, having thought about them this whole time, having went through the community guidelines and policies, there's nothing where I feel that they weren't clear or where we can argue that they were vague. Nothing was vague in that language. Nothing was vague in that language at all. They clearly laid out what they mean and what you can and cannot do. I think at that point, it's just a matter of people being somewhat intellectually dishonest about how these things are laid out. I think that I don't know what that means. I don't think people are being honest when they say that. I don't know what that means. Yes, you do. Like, it's just obvious, I think. Now, if someone really is earnestly saying they don't get it, then I question their ability to be a content creator, because how are you going to make any judgment calls in how you run your content, your channel, your business? I mean, a successful content creator Wonderlich Drum says, did you mention the music profiles behind YouTube Creator Studio? I know that that's a way to see what music is on that you can use, but if the song isn't on that list, then what? Then it's copyrighted. Then it's copyrighted and it's not your content, and so it's not fair use. But here's my thing. There's no reason to use popular songs unless you're doing a cover or a parody. There's no reason to use, because no one cares about popular music when you do a YouTube video. That's not what gets it views. The thumbnail and the title gets the click, gets the views. What song you used, what music you used, no one cares, because they don't know that when they click the video. They have no idea. If it's a parody, then yeah, sure, fine. But if you do a parody, you already know that you could be subject to that video not being monetized. So you know the risk inherently going in. So I don't think that that's a problem. what's considered successful? I mean, everyone wants to have their own definition of success. For all intents and purposes, I'm talking about getting full access to the 10,000 subscribers to have all access to almost every platform feature unlocked, the 4,000 hours of watch time, the 1,000 subscribers, like those basic things, or making a living if that's how you want. Like whatever you people that are on YouTube right now consider success, like take it with a grain of salt or interpret it how you want. I don't want to mince words about what's a successful YouTube channel. I don't care anymore. I don't care what anyone wants to say is a successful YouTube channel. I'm not interested. My channel's successful for my definitions of successful. I don't care. Believe what you want. I don't care. I'm done with it. I don't care. Not interested. Not debating it. Not interested. Nope. So whatever. Jason Holmes asks, the language wasn't vague. I agree. The implementation feels sometimes skewed. Would some people agree with that? I mean, yeah, some people agree with that. Some people think the Earth's flat too. I don't know what people agreeing to it or what people believe. I don't know how much that matters in the world of facts, right? I don't know how much that matters in the world of facts. Because to say it's skewed, well, skewed, like, Jason, can you clarify? Because I don't know. What's skewed? When you say the implementation feels skewed, what does that mean? I could say that it feels warm. What does that mean? I could say that I feel uncomfortable in this chair. What does that mean? Like, I don't like, that's when things are vague. That's an example of when language is vague. Like, be specific. What about the YouTube implementation of policy in terms of terms of service feels skewed? What about the YouTube terms of service implementation or policy implementation feels skewed, and define skewed, and skewed how, and skewed in what sense? Let's unpack this. Let's talk about it for another like 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'm out. I gotta eat lunch, and I gotta unpack these boxes because I'm sure I got some cool stuff here to unpack. And then my brother's visiting me, so I gotta do stuff with that. So like, when some videos are deleted and clickbait thrives because YouTube gets views. Clickbait thrives because a lot of young people are on YouTube, and a lot of young people are very naive and easily leveraged, and that's why clickbait thrives on YouTube. Attention thrives on YouTube. Clickbait thrives everywhere. Clickbait thrives on mainstream media websites. Clickbait thrives on titles in Twitter. It's not just YouTube. It's not even a YouTube problem. Clickbait is pervasive. That's the culture you're in. Welcome to 2018. Clickbait thrives on YouTube. Why are some videos deleted? Some videos are deleted because in section 7.8, in paragraph 7, section 2 of section 8 of YouTube's terms of service, on becoming aware of potential violation of these terms, YouTube reserves the right but shall have no obligation to decide whether content complies with the content requirements set out in these terms, and may remove such content and or terminate a user's access for uploading content which is in violation of these terms at any time without prior notice and at its sole discretion. Translation, besides, okay, they can do what they want. Here's the thing. Did YouTube's bots catch it? If YouTube's bots catch it, did they then delete it? And what are the parameters? That is proprietary information coded into the YouTube algorithm that they are not at liberty nor have to disclose. So that is within their rights as a company to not tell you the weighting criteria of how they identify clickbait, how they identify a misleading content piece algorithmically. They explain what misleading or clickbait content could be, but algorithmically they have no obligation to tell you here's the line of code we wrote or how the line of code we writes to decide what gets deleted. So they never have to do that. YouTube doesn't need live customer support unless you want to pay $500 a month for it. No, it's a free service. It's a free service, and they service too many people. It's too big. They can't staff that. It's not viable, and YouTube doesn't make enough money for that. I completely and wholeheartedly, adamantly disagree and will debate YouTube needing live customer service. It is a lot to handle. Big service companies do for paying customers. So here's the thing. Give me this criteria, because I wrote this in Twitter. If you have 100,000 subscribers or more, you get the option. If it's me, I would say you get the option to pay $500 a month to have a limited number of live tech support calls or live support calls, and you pay $500 a month. That financially justifies having that and having customer service staff, and that's it. And nobody else gets it, and that's what I would do. And that's what, if I were YouTube, that's what I would do. Jason, Jason, I'm with you. I know it's all in love. I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can. I'm trying to also be business objective. I'm also trying to be business. I'm trying to be business in the fact that it's like, what would I do if I were a company? Because again, I keep thinking about this. What would I do? And I'm like, because as a consumer, I can want what I want. That doesn't make it a valid justification for a company to do that just because I want something. So I think about things in, well, what's the rule of law? What's likely to happen? Not what I want, what's likely. I go with that. And I'm happy to have the conversation and the intelligent debate. It's harder when I'm suffering and I need more Freon for the damn air conditioning. Walderich Drum says, I'm still confused because the whole thing with music policies page that it'll tell you if you can't use a song in your video. What I mean is when the song doesn't come up in that search at all. Wonderlich Drums. If the music that you want does not come into that search, you cannot use it. That is the short answer. If it does not come up in that search, don't use it. If you do, you take your own risk. That is the long and short of it, is that, one, I am not for people, unless they're doing a music video parody, using copyrighted music in their YouTube videos. Period. End of story. Use copyright-free music. Period. End of story. However, if you're not going to do that, then use what's in YouTube's content library of what they say, here's what you can use, but you can't monetize. If it is not in that list and it doesn't come up in search, don't use it. If you use it, there's a chance that it'll be demonetized or they'll claim it and claim the money. If you're okay with that, do it. There's a chance you could be copyright striked. If you're okay with that, do it. That's the rule on music. The music industry is still old. The music video is still archaic. Whatever it is air conditioning uses. Because, my thing says low, whatever. And so, I don't know. I got to get the air conditioning fixed. Because it's hot Atlanta. So, I would do that. So I would say if it's copyrighted music, don't use it. If you're going to use it, it should be on YouTube's list. If it's not on YouTube's list, don't use it. If it's not on YouTube's list and you use it, it could be claimed, demonetized, or copy striked, and that's what it is, because the music industry is archaic as hell. The music industry is not interested in the new digital sharing economy that the rest of us live in 2018. So, don't mess with the music industry. The television and film industry is getting slightly better and more interested in this new economy and this new content sharing and the free promotion. The video game industry is getting there. So yeah. Emilio Taka says, do you think that small creators, and when I say small creators, I'm not saying in any wrong way that I'm proud small creator, can collaborate with bigger creators? If yes, can you collaborate, Roberto? I only collaborate with content creators based on either a personal friendship and or the direct value that their content or point of view will have for my audience, because I'm not a YouTuber the way that other people are a YouTuber. I'm not an entertainment channel. I'm not a happy family vlogger channel. I'm not one of the vlogger squad. I'm not that kind of channel. So my collaborations are predicated entirely on what's the value proposition of learning here for my audience, and that's how I do that. Now, to collaborate on someone else's channel, it's just do I want to, and is it an experience I want? And so then that's the other factor. So it's got to be, for me on my channel, what does my audience want, and what can they get in value, and that is based on the value proposition of my channel. And then me being on someone else's channel is, what's our relationship, and do I wanna? And is it going to be a good experience for me? And again, if I do those things, I'd rather prioritize friends or something that gets me excited. So and then I don't really think collaborating with big creators matters. I think collaborating with friends matters. I think collaborating with friends, collaborating with people in your niche, collaborating with me, it might feel exciting or fun because, oh, there's a big channel, but it's going to be useless to you if my content isn't the content on your channel. My audience isn't going to come over and just say hi. I mean, it doesn't work that way. People are ruthless with their time. And I have never had that experience. I've had friends on this channel that have featured on this channel that have helped me with things or been an interview or whatever, and they've never really gotten a subscriber bump. They've never gotten a subscriber bump from being on this channel. So I don't feel like that does anything. I think that two channels have to have very similar audiences, very similar themes, very similar styles, and usually, you know, some other relationship for that to translate to any significant bump for their channel. So Mike Van Duze, thank you for the $5 for Freon. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Based Shaman, thank you. Thanks to an idea you shared last month, I was able to make a video that got me 1 million views for the first time. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, man. That's dope. That's good to know that I got you there, or that my idea helped or it spawned something in you. So, like, you know, like, that's what I like to hear that. I like to hear that stuff worked out for people and that they got what they were looking for in terms of some measure of success. That's awesome. Oh, yeah. But, yeah, I think the terms of service are very, very boring, very clear. It's not the least bit exciting. It's the most dry thing I think I've ever read in my life. Like this, like, oh my God, it was so boring to read that for 3 hours. 3 hours to read the terms of service. Because, I mean, I only think we talked about it or debated it for like 20 minutes, but it was like 3 grueling hours. It was 3 grueling hours of reading all that legal jargon. It's like, Christ. Pam M, thank you for the $10 super chat. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, but, oh God, like 3 painful hours of reading the YouTube terms of service. And then another probably 30 minutes analyzing it. Beyond what we did. God, that's painful. I was hoping this would only take an hour. YouTube's terms of service are long and lengthy and no joke. It took us almost an hour just to get through the terms, and then we had to go through all the other policies. It's a lot of stuff. I doubt that have any of you read the terms of service the way we did? Did any of you read all this stuff? Did any of you read this before today? Like, I think, like, did any of you ever read the terms of service before today? Because it takes like, I read it to you. I think it takes a flat out 2 hours. I think it takes a flat out 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I think it takes 2.5 hours to read the terms of service. Just straight up. I think it takes 2.5 to 3 hours straight up to read the terms of service and comprehend it. I mean, that's how bad it is. I think it takes 2.5 hours to read the terms of service. Maybe 3 hours. And I'm good at I read very quickly. I have a speed reader, so like that was grueling. Jay Loves, thank you for the $10 super chat. Thank you, Roberto, for all you do. That was a lot for someone to do, but is greatly appreciated. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you guys, everybody who's donated via super chat. It actually does mean a lot, and I appreciate it. It makes the marathon of doing that just worth it. It just makes it worth it. Oh my God, I'm never doing that again, though. I'm never doing that again. So from now on, whenever anybody wants to think about the terms of service, they can just reference this video, and it takes 2.5 hours to read through the terms of service. Yep. So, Juice, good to see you, buddy. You'll want to watch the replay. You'll want to watch the replay because we went through 2.5 hours. 3 hours of just reading the terms of service, and then we spent like 45 minutes on going through what that means. But dude, it's like 3 hours to read YouTube's terms of service and policies. YouTube's terms of service and policies is a 3-hour read, dude. It's a 3-hour read just to get through YouTube's terms and policies. And we went through all of it. We went through copyright. We went through like all of it. And there's probably little things that link out in there where there's probably more things. And like, so, man, there's just so much. So, yeah. So yeah, I think I'm good for today. I think I think I just did us a little bit of what you could call a public service by reading through the YouTube terms there. So I think I'm good. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for hanging with me. I'll have to go back in the description. I'll have to link to all the terms of service, but if you literally just Google YouTube terms of service, or if you go to the link at the bottom of the YouTube website, they're there. But the terms of service are brutal. I've got to go eat something. I'm starving. I need some wine. I need some wine in addition to a meal right now. I need a drink after reading that. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you again to our good friends at vidIQ for sponsoring today's live stream. Be sure to check out vidiq.com/Roberto. Use code Roberto at checkout to get a 30-day free trial on any paid plan. It's one of the best Chrome extensions for optimizing and growing your YouTube channel. So thank you to our friends at vidIQ for sponsoring the live streams. So yeah, a little bit of housekeeping there. Guys, thank you so much for all the support. Thank you, everybody who did Super Chats. Thank you for tuning into this. Thank you for sharing it. This stream will be available on the YouTube channel later today. I may also do an upload this evening. If not, I'll probably do one tomorrow. So just be on the lookout for that. I'm trying to upload around noon these days, usually Monday through Friday, but we might upload on Sunday since we did a live stream today. So again, thank you. And what else have I got as far as housekeeping for you guys? Be sure to support the YouTube channel by going to awesomecreatoracademy.com. We have a free blog over there in the blog section, but also we've got products for you like the YouTube Starter Kit for helping you with your YouTube thumbnails, the formula for awesome video if you want to make videos that don't suck. And we also have, of course, one-on-one coaching with me. Links are, of course, in the description down below. Please use them. Guys, thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for tuning in on a Saturday afternoon when you didn't have to. Just go out there, create something awesome today, and make sure it complies with YouTube's terms of service, or else. Take care.